Chapter 61. Terran Bloodfiend was scared away. The elves were also stunned, they hadn't expected anyone to appear on the path of the Death Knight charge. However, what made them even more incredulous was that the charging Death Knights actually stopped. Specifically, Talon Bloodweaver, who was leading the Death Knight charge, stopped, causing the other Death Knights to stop as well. The Troll Death Knights' souls were weak, and Gul'dan had easily erased their autonomy. They would only act under Talon Bloodweaver's command. This was a careful trick Gul'dan had left when creating the Troll Death Knights, in case the trolls and orcs turned against each other. As a result, this little trick completed Roger's reputation for single-handedly stopping the Death Knight army. Arcane missiles didn't cause too much damage to the Death Knights, what stopped Talon Bloodweaver was the fear in his heart. The soul is the most complex thing in the world. Gul'dan hadn't been studying necromancy for long, and it was already amazing that he could create Death Knights. He thought that by extracting Talon Bloodweaver's fear, he could make Talon Bloodweaver fearless. Unfortunately, he overlooked the fearful memories deep within Talon Bloodweaver's heart. As soon as he saw Roger, Talon Bloodweaver remembered that memory, and with it, fear. Roger. You know me. Roger looked at the ogre Death Knight in front of him in surprise. He thought about it carefully, but it seemed that there had never been an ogre Death Knight in the history of Warcraft. So where did this guy in front of him come from? Just then, Zul'jin's angry roar came from behind the Death Knights. Damn Talon Bloodweaver, why haven't you launched an attack yet? Talon Bloodweaver. Roger carefully sized up the big guy in front of him and couldn't help but laugh. It really is a narrow road for enemies. Talon Bloodweaver was shocked and angry. He raised his staff and unleashed a shadow barrage at Roger. Kill him! The Troll Death Knights instantly launched a charge, rushing towards Roger. Roger took out Deathwing's Demon Bane shield and dispelled Talon Bloodweaver's shadow barrage. Then, without any regard for the Troll Death Knights, he charged towards Talon Bloodweaver with Deathwing's Demon Bane sword in hand. Since I didn't kill you once, then I'll kill you twice. Talon Bloodweaver looked at the dark longsword and felt even more fear. He turned his undead warhorse around and went against the flow. While running, he commanded the Troll Death Knights, "Stop him for me." The Troll Death Knights rushed forward one after another, constantly blocking Roger. Roger could have used wind walking to catch up to Talon Bloodweaver, but seeing that this was a good opportunity to annihilate the Troll Death Knights, he knew that failing to eliminate them in one fell swoop would definitely leave future troubles. Moreover, so many Death Knights would definitely bring a lot of experience. Thinking of this, Roger gave up chasing Talon Bloodweaver. He raised his hand and cast Arcane Brilliance on himself, then used Arcane Explosion to blast away the surrounding Death Knights. The arcane energy with divinity tore apart the Troll Death Knights' fragile bodies. John saw Roger in a dangerous situation and immediately rushed out from behind the defense line, wanting to rescue Roger. B Company soldiers followed closely behind, and some motivated recruits also rushed out of the defense line. However, they were hit by the Death Knight's shadow energy before they could even reach the Death Knights. Even the weakest Death Knight was not something ordinary human soldiers could fight against. Aurelia shouted loudly on the city wall, "Sylvanas, attack the trolls!" Hearing her sister's shout, Sylvanas finally came back to her senses. She quickly waved her hand, "Shoot! Shoot!" The rangers immediately stopped their retreat and continuously rained magic arrows on the Troll Death Knights. Boom! Boom! The Troll Death Knights charged towards Roger fearlessly, one after another. Roger only needed to continuously cast Arcane Explosion to reap their lives. The experience kept increasing, and the level of the Arcane Master kept rising, making Roger wish it could continue like this, all the way to level 1000. But unfortunately, John and the others broke Roger's leveling plan. In the absence of external forces, the Troll Death Knights followed Talon Bloodweaver's orders and continued to attack Roger, even if it meant certain death. But the intervention of John and the others gave the Troll Death Knights other targets. They separated a portion to attack John and the others. The B Company soldiers blessed by life had strength no less than the Troll Death Knights. In addition, the red dragon armor they were equipped with gave them the ability to defeat the Troll Death Knights. However, the human recruits following behind them suffered, and dozens of them fell in an instant when faced with the Troll Death Knights' attacks. And these people should not have sacrificed themselves. "Talon Bloodweaver, what are you doing?" Orgrim questioned. "Chieftain, Roger's Kishan is here, he will kill us." Talon Bloodweaver's calm words revealed deep fear. Orgrim frowned. He didn't feel fear towards this human who had disrupted his actions many times, Only disgust. Who is that? To make you feel so afraid? Zul'jin walked over angrily, staring fiercely at Talon Bloodweaver, so afraid that you're burying my Death Knight army. Talon Bloodweaver tilted his head to look at Zul'jin. Ha, troll chieftain. You probably don't know that the Death Knight army has never belonged to you from the beginning, right? What do you mean by this? Zul'jin questioned. Orgrim glanced at Talon Bloodweaver guiltily. It was he who had instructed Gul'dan to tamper with the troll Death Knights. Chieftain, you have also been kept in the dark by Gul'dan. Talon Bloodweaver's words made Orgrim's heart sink. Gul'dan. He suddenly remembered that Gul'dan had not followed them to attack Tarklan, but had stayed in Zul-Aman. That's right, chieftain. Talon Bloodweaver said, at this time, Gul'dan is already at sea. Orgrim asked angrily, why are you only telling me now? I also wanted to tell you in advance. Talon Bloodweaver twitched his stiff mouth, revealing a hint of mockery. Gul'dan can tamper with the troll Death Knights, so naturally he can tamper with me as well. If I hadn't just awakened the memories deep in my soul, I would still be Gul'dan's puppet. Traitor. Gul'dan. Chapter 62. From the beginning, Orgrim knew that Gul'dan would not be loyal to him. But he never expected Gul'dan to run away at such a crucial moment. Now is the weakest time for the orcs. Without the help of Gul'dan's warlocks, this war is bound to be lost. They can't even take Tranquil Lane, let alone attack Silver Moon City. If they can't defeat the elves, how will the trolls help the orcs attack humans? Who in this world is having a harder time than me? Orgrim felt a bitter taste in his mouth, as if he had eaten 5 pounds of Coptis chinensis, though he didn't know what Coptis chinensis was. Zul'jin couldn't trust the two, and even couldn't trust the orcs. He said to the priestess Malakas, lock up all the orcs and deal with them after killing all the elves here. Zul'jin didn't believe that tens of thousands of trolls couldn't take down Tranquil Lane. Kill all the elves for me. These trolls have lived in Zul-Aman for many years, and their understanding of elves mostly comes from legends and stories. Except for the Zandalari trolls, other trolls have no concept of history at all. Therefore, they know nothing about the terror of the elves, and only see the numerical gap between the two sides. Even though Roger destroyed an army of Death Knights right under their noses, they were still not afraid. Tens of thousands of people could drown Roger with a single javelin each, that's what they thought and that's what they did. Javelins rained down on Roger. Roger raised his shield to block some of them, but the anti-magic shield could only block his head and upper body, and his lower body was still hit by javelins. If it were a month ago, Roger would definitely not be able to resist such an attack and would have been killed by the javelin sea. Now, even though the javelins pierced the Urian dynasty armor, they were blocked by Roger's skin. The power of the steel body was undoubtedly revealed at this moment. Even if it hit the exposed skin, the troll javelins could hardly cause serious damage to Roger. The trolls watched the javelins submerge Roger, and their spirits were greatly lifted. They screamed strangely and continued to charge towards the B Company soldiers and the human recruits and elven rangers charging behind them. They wanted to defeat the enemy with a human wave tactic. However, as soon as they rushed to the vicinity of the javelin pile, they felt a warmth. Some trolls looked at the source of the heat in surprise, and saw a large amount of flames emerging from the javelin pile, which quickly ignited all the javelins. Out of disgust for the flames, the trolls stopped. They felt that something was wrong. Boom! With a loud noise, the burning javelin pile exploded instantly, and countless javelins shot out in all directions with flames. The trolls were caught off guard. If most of the javelins hadn't been burned, they would have suffered heavy losses. But before they could rejoice, they saw a person burning with flames rushing towards them. It was Roger, who had been submerged by the javelins. Roger held the flame blade Sanxus, and activated the two skills Flame Body and Flame Blade at the same time. The Urian dynasty armor, which had been destroyed by the javelins, could not form a rune circuit, and was burned and twisted by the flames, disintegrating and falling from Roger's body. A set of red dragon armor appeared on Roger's body. Not only was the red dragon armor soaked in flames not destroyed, but it also activated the fire elements on it, which in turn nourished the power of the flame body. Wherever he passed, the grass and trees withered, the land cracked, and the moisture was instantly drawn away. Roger shot into the trolls like a cannonball. The fire blade formed by Sanxus swept across, directly cutting dozens of trolls in half. The moment the trolls were killed, their bodies were charred, their blood was evaporated, and their corpses fell to the ground and continued to burn, turning into ashes in a few breaths. Demon! Some trolls exclaimed loudly, subconsciously throwing the weapons in their hands at Roger. Quick! Kill him! Quick! Roger swung Sanxus again, and the whistling fire blade instantly cleared a large area on the battlefield, and none of the trolls in the area survived. The trolls were terrified. They had never fought such a monster before. They even suspected that even their great chieftain Zul'jin might not be a match for this monster. Almost all the trolls were running away, and several troll generals who wanted to stop them were instantly killed by flying magic arrows. Now, no one could stop the rout of tens of thousands of trolls. The elven rangers and human recruits were immediately invigorated, and then pursued and killed. The trolls didn't fight back at all, and many even surrendered directly. As long as they didn't encounter the demon Roger, they were willing to do anything. The human recruits were a little at a loss. They had only undergone a short period of training and didn't know how to deal with this situation. Fortunately, the B Company soldiers were with them, confiscate their weapons and drive them together to guard them. John didn't know how the elves would treat these trolls, but after all, this was the elves' home field, so it was better to hand these prisoners over to them. Unexpectedly, the elven rangers didn't even look at these prisoners. How could Sylvanas let go of this opportunity to weaken the Amini trolls? Who knew when the next opportunity to kill trolls so easily would come? Aurelia also didn't expect the trolls to be so easily defeated, and stood on the city wall a little at a loss. Kurdran beside her asked, "Madam, shouldn't we attack?" Aurelia then came back to her senses. She looked at Roger, who was still chasing and killing trolls in the distance, smiled meaningfully, and then said, "Let's pursue too." Soon, the Griffin Knights of the Wild Hammer Dwarves and the Dragonhawk Knights of the High Elves took off one after another and chased after the fleeing troll army. Originally, the Air Force was to be used as a trump card, but the result proved that they had thought too much. Zul'jin looked at the fleeing trolls in disbelief. He couldn't understand how tens of thousands of troll troops could be defeated like this. He looked at Roger, who was chasing and killing him not far away. At this time, Roger had cancelled Flame Body and Flame Blade due to insufficient mana. But relying on the power of the flames of Sanxus, killing trolls was still like cutting melons and vegetables. Although Roger was very brave, Zul'jin still couldn't believe that this person defeated tens of thousands of trolls with his own strength. Damn it! Zul'jin bit his teeth until they bled, and anger impacted his brain. He cast Bloodlust on himself, and then let out a battle cry to further enhance his strength, and suddenly threw the battle axe in his hand. Roger was unprepared and was directly hit by the battle axe. The powerful battle axe hit him on the shoulder, and the axe blade touched the bone. Without the steel body, Roger would probably have been split in half. This is a strong man. Roger looked over instantly, and saw a tall troll glaring at him fiercely and launching a charge at him. Chapter 63. Seeing Roger injured, Zul'jin laughed cruelly. Consumed by anger, Zul'jin didn't consider why his full-strength battle axe throw hadn't killed Roger, only lightly injuring him. Zul'jin only thought that since Roger could be injured, he could be killed. He was completely unaware that although Roger was injured, he didn't feel much pain. The steel body not only enhanced Roger's physical strength but also reduced the sensitivity of Roger's pain nerves. Roger pulled out the battle axe, and there was no gush of blood. It wasn't that the battle axe hadn't made a small wound, but the legendary toughness brought a powerful recovery force that healed the blood vessels the moment the battle axe was pulled out, and then quickly healed the wound. By the time Roger threw away the battle axe, his skin was as good as new, with only a huge crack left on the red dragon armor. Roger frowned slightly, not expecting even epic armor to be so easily damaged. It seems he has to learn how to repair equipment, otherwise, the cost of repairing equipment will be too high. Reality is not a game. In the game, equipment can be sold directly after being upgraded. In reality, epic equipment is extremely rare. If Roger hadn't received assistance from Egwene and the Red Dragon Queen, it would have been impossible for him to obtain so much epic equipment. The Windrunner family, even after thousands of years of operation, couldn't equip everyone with epic gear. Keep in mind that the Windrunner family only has about 20 people, which is equivalent to the number of soldiers in B Company. From this perspective, you can see how rare epic equipment is. Zul'jin saw that Roger didn't even look at him, and his anger grew even more. During the charge, he casually picked up a troll's discarded battle axe and threw it at Roger again, then he followed behind the battle axe, continuing to charge towards Roger. Clang! Roger casually waved Sangasu, deflecting the battle axe. Only then did he look up at Zul'jin, and suddenly disappeared from the spot. Losing his charging target, Zul'jin immediately stopped. He concentrated and looked around, but only saw the fleeing trolls. Just then, he suddenly became alert, quickly waved his long sword, and spun like a top. The blade whistled, sweeping a radius of more than 10 yards. Whirlwind slash! Clang! The sound of weapons colliding rang out. Roger appeared within the range of the whirlwind slash, and then quickly retreated from the attack range of the whirlwind slash. Found you, human! Zul'jin curled his lips in disdain, then jumped towards Roger, bringing his battle axe down on his head. So what if you did? Roger retorted, dodging Zul'jin's attack sideways, turning and swinging Sangasud to slash at Zul'jin's nape. Zul'jin nimbly lunged forward, dodging the fatal blow, and then quickly rushed back, continuing to attack Roger. Roger wielded Sangasud and fought with Zul'jin. Zul'jin was tall and strong, possessing great power and agility. Roger was equally agile, and with the skill of the Wuji swordsmanship, they fought evenly for a time. The surrounding trolls gradually thinned out, and the elven rangers were about to rush over. Zul'jin was a little anxious. He suddenly swung his battle axe, forcing Roger back. Since he couldn't defeat Roger in close combat, he might as well use witchcraft. Zul'jin sensed the danger again. He repeated his old trick, wanting to use whirlwind slash again to force Roger back. But the whirlwind slash struck empty. Zul'jin felt bad. Wanting to escape was already too late. The demon bane sword slashed down from the air. Zul'jin's whole body stiffened. He didn't feel any pain, but he couldn't move at all. After a few seconds, his two eyes found themselves gradually approaching the ground. But how was this possible? Roger frowned, casually flicked 2 balls of fire, and burned Zul'jin's body. Killed 1,000 enemies in a war, achieved the achievement A match for 1,000, gained 10 achievement points. Annihilated the Troll Death Knight army, gained the title Undead Bane. Undead Bane, heroic title. Undead below the heroic level are afraid of you, and their combat power is greatly reduced. Killed Zul'jin, chieftain of the Amini Trolls. The Wuji swordsman's level increased to 30, gained 5 Wuji swordsman skill points. The Wuji swordsman has a new learnable skill, Whirlwind Slash. Gained the ancient Agir artifact, peered at its summoning runes, gained the skill Summon Amini Warhawk. Hey? Amini Warhawk? Roger was stunned for a moment. Does Amini have an air force? According to the original history, Zul'jin was captured by the High Elves, blinded in one eye, and broken arm before escaping. Then Zul'jin didn't return to Zul-Aman, but went to Zand-Eller, obtained the approval of the 4 Loa gods, and after returning to Zul-Aman, did Amini have Dragon Hawk Riders and Warhawk Riders? Wait! Ancient Agir artifact? Isn't the eagle Loa called Agir's son? Why are there a few letters missing? After thinking about it, he couldn't quite understand it, but summoning the Amini Warhawk is not bad. It is a summon that can act as a flying mount. Even if he doesn't have a griffin in the future, he can travel quickly. But compared with teleportation spells, there is still a big difference. It seems that I have to study teleportation spells more in the future. This battle was a huge harvest. The Wuji swordsman leveled up to 30, gaining 10 skill points. Roger wanted to upgrade Wuji swordsmanship, but found that the class level was not enough, and needed to reach level 60 to upgrade to the legendary level. He also tried to upgrade toughness, but it needed to wait until level 100 to upgrade to the mythical level. So there are restrictions. He thought he could upgrade infinitely. 3 points to upgrade Wind Walk, 3 points to upgrade Mirror Image, 2 points to upgrade Flame Blade, 1 point to upgrade Flame Body, and the last 1 point to learn Whirlwind Slash. He also spent 3 achievement points to strengthen Whirlwind Slash, obtaining a skill that surprised Roger. Blade Storm, beginner sword chi, range, and power increased by 10%. He thought Blade Storm was an exclusive skill of the Blade Master, but now it seems that it is not. It is an upgraded version of Whirlwind Slash, and the reason why it is exclusive to the Orc Blade Master is because only the Orc Blade Master knows how to strengthen it. Chapter 64. Besides the Blade Master, the Arcane Master also leveled up wildly by 6 levels, using the 6 skill points to upgrade Magic Burst and Spell Counter to Master level. With 8 achievement points remaining, Roger tried to enhance Slow Fall, resulting in a pleasant surprise. Levitation, skilled speed, control, and agility increased by 20%. Although it doesn't allow flight, it's a powerful life-saving skill. Floating in the air is faster and more agile, and you can also control the altitude. In some special terrains, it might have miraculous effects. Sylvanas stopped beside Roger, looking at him with a complex expression. "Lady Windrunner, is there something wrong?" Roger asked with a smile. "Thank you." Sylvanas whispered her thanks, then quickly ran off to continue pursuing the trolls. John and the others also rushed over. "Roger, are you all right?" "I'm fine." Roger shook his head. "What about the casualties?" "Over 200 new recruits died." John's tone was somewhat downcast. If they had been veterans, the casualties would definitely have been much lower. Roger nodded, not saying much. If Baron Rivendare hadn't given him new recruits, he wouldn't have taken the risk. Although the rewards were great, the danger was also high, which didn't fit his style. Fortunately, Gul'dan didn't appear. Roger was somewhat puzzled. What was Gul'dan doing? Just in case, Roger took out a mana gem and absorbed the mana inside to replenish his own. Aurelia and Kurdran led the air force flying overhead. Roger summoned his Amini Warhawk. "John, lead them to gather the prisoners. I'll go up and take a look." "Be careful," John urged. The Amini Warhawk took off and quickly caught up with Aurelia. "Have you found Gul'dan?" "No." Aurelia shook her head while observing. Suddenly, she noticed a mixed army of trolls and orcs ahead of the troll route. "Aren't orcs supposed to be brave and good at fighting? Why are they running away first?" Roger used Farsight to look over and couldn't help but laugh. The orcs and trolls are fighting among themselves. The trolls have captured the orcs. A strange expression appeared on Aurelia's face. As they got closer, she quickly discovered a new problem. "Isn't that orc Ogrim?" "That's right." Roger nodded. "I didn't expect the Orcish Warkif to be reduced to this state." Ha ha ha! Kurdran laughed loudly when he heard Ogrim's name. His griffin suddenly accelerated. "Rogers, Lady Windrunner, let's see who can capture Ogrim." Hearing this, Aurelia turned to look at Roger. Roger looked at the fighting spirit in Aurelia's eyes and said with a smile, "If you want to compete, I'm always ready." "Then I'll take the lead," Aurelia said with a smile, and the Dragonhawk she was riding also began to accelerate, chasing after the troll army ahead. Seeing their commanders accelerate, the Griffin riders and Dragonhawk riders also followed suit, quickly flying over the escorting troops. The Griffin riders threw storm hammers, and the Dragonhawk riders used magic arrows, killing many trolls in a single round of attacks. Chieftain Marakus also panicked. Wasn't Zul'jin attacking Kulthalas? Why were the elves here? He looked behind him, only to see trolls rooting across the mountains and plains. Only then did he belatedly realize that Zul'jin had been defeated. However, he still couldn't understand how Zul'jin, with tens of thousands of troops, could have been defeated so quickly. He searched for Zul'jin's tall figure in the crowd, hoping to get an answer. But unfortunately, he never found him. "Trolls, quickly untie us. We'll help you deal with the elves." Ogrim dodged several attacks and hurriedly shouted to Marakus. Marakus hesitated. If he untied the orcs, Zul'jin would definitely blame him. But if he didn't, he wouldn't be able to deal with the elves and dwarves in the sky at all. In the end, he gritted his teeth and ordered the trolls, "Release all the orcs." The trolls hurriedly untied the orcs around them. Before the trolls could untie the ropes, Talon Bloodweaver directly used fell energy to corrode them. He reached out, and his staff flew over. Catching the staff, he fired a barrage of shadow bolts at the sky. The Griffins and Dragonhawks quickly dodged. Kurdran even threw Storm Hammer at Talon Bloodweaver. Bang! The thunderous hammer interrupted Talon Bloodweaver's spell casting. Annoyed, Talon Bloodweaver wanted to kill Kurdran. But when he turned his head, he saw a warhawk flying from afar, with Roger riding on it. Talon Bloodweaver's soul almost left his body. He didn't care about Kurdran anymore and urged his undead warhorse to flee. The trolls were stunned by Talon Bloodweaver. What was that guy doing again? Damn it! Ogrim stomped his feet and roared loudly, "Talon Bloodweaver, you are a disgrace to the orcs." Then he turned to the trolls not far away and shouted, "What are you still standing there for? Quickly untie me!" The trolls were stunned by his shout. Coming back to their senses, they hurriedly helped Ogrim untie the ropes. As soon as the ropes were untied, a storm hammer smashed the troll to death. Then, a griffin swooped down, pinning Ogrim to the ground. "Haha, I caught you." But Ogrim wasn't the kind of person to be captured without a fight. He suddenly raised his leg and kicked the griffin in the lower abdomen. The griffin cried out miserably and went berserk, constantly pecking at Ogrim's head. Ogrim twisted his body, struggling to escape from the griffin's attacks. But before he could stand up, a net of light descended from the sky, tightly binding him. Ogrim struggled, but the more he struggled, the tighter the net became, and soon he couldn't struggle anymore. Kurdran quickly stopped the crazed griffin. Looking at Ogrim again, he had already been taken away from the battlefield by a dragon hawk. Aurelia smiled in the air and said, "Kurdran, I'll take the lead." Kurdran was annoyed. He had clearly caught Ogrim first. Unfortunately, Ogrim had already been taken away by Aurelia. He couldn't steal credit from his allies, especially since Aurelia was a woman. He could only vent his anger on the other orcs. Aurelia flew to Roger's side, showing off triumphantly, "I won." "You won," Roger said with a smile, not caring at all. Aurelia immediately lost interest. "You're such a bore." Roger didn't explain. His eyes were constantly scanning the battlefield. Ogrim wasn't a minor Orcish chieftain. Capturing him was more meaningful than killing him. But Roger wasn't interested in targets he couldn't kill, and he didn't need the credit. On the contrary, the fact that Gul'dan hadn't appeared yet made Roger vigilant. He didn't know what insidious plot that cunning warlock was brewing. Chapter 65. Malakras followed the retreating soldiers all the way back to Zul-Aman. If he hadn't returned in time to take charge, Zul-Aman would likely have been captured by the pursuing elves. Even so, the Amani trolls suffered heavy losses in this battle. Over 20,000 trolls were killed or captured, and tens of thousands more were hunted down by the elves in Eversong Woods. Only a little over 10,000 trolls made it back to Zul-Aman, having its population. Furthermore, these were the trolls' most elite soldiers, and even Chieftain Zul'jin was missing. Some trolls said that Zul'jin had been captured by the elves, others said that he had been killed by humans. Rumors abounded, and Malakras couldn't tell which was true. Now, Zul-Aman was completely incapable of launching an attack. They could only huddle within the city walls and watch as the elves set up defenses before the gates. Orgrim was taken to Silver Moon City, and Roger and the others were received by the Sunstrider dynasty. Although many nobles didn't think the reinforcements Roger brought were that important, this battle had killed over 10,000 trolls, captured over 10,000 trolls, and exhausted the Amani trolls' accumulation of thousands of years. This was a great help to Kulthalas. Moreover, regardless of anything else, Roger had indeed helped the elves, and the Elven King believed that the elves should show some friendship in return. Unlike Emperor Thoradin back then, Emperor Thoradin had offered help in a time of need, so the elves regarded Emperor Thoradin as a friend. Roger had only added flowers to the brocade, so the etiquette for receiving him was the same as that for the ambassador of Lord Aaron. After entering Silver Moon City, Roger clearly felt that the arcane energy was much more active. If he absorbed the power of the dragon soul here, it should be even faster. So, at night, he set up a barrier to hide the energy fluctuations, and then absorbed the energy of the dragon soul inside the room. He absorbed 2 strands of arcane divinity in one night. Without the buff of the sun, well, how could there be a doubling effect? The nobles of Silver Moon City were proud and reserved. Although they didn't take Roger seriously, they still had basic manners. Moreover, they knew how to be grateful. Roger had sent troops to help the elves deal with the trolls, and they had also sent an army to help the humans deal with the orcs. Although the orcs were already declining, one more or one less army made no difference, but at least Silver Moon City had shown its attitude. Alyria was still appointed as commander and followed Roger on a ship to the wetlands front. After Lothar received the news of Orgrim's capture, he believed that the time for a counterattack was ripe, so he issued an order for a full-scale counterattack. The main force of the Alliance army sailed south from South Shore and, with the help of the Kul Tira's navy, regained control of Manethil Harbour. The army marched north along the avenue, and together with Uther on the north side of Thandal Span, they defeated the orcs of Dun Modr. After the two sides joined forces, they turned their attention to Grimbatol. Dethrohan and Fordring occupied Airy Peak, but the Blacktooth Grin clan, which had been abandoned there, had already built ships with the help of the trolls and fled back to Northrend, which later became the Twilight Highlands. Dethrohan and Fordring also stepped up the construction of ships and pursued them. Rend Blackhand did not stay in Northrend and fled south all the way. When he arrived at Loch Modan, he took away all the orcs stationed there. The orcs also learned of Orgrim's capture, and it was a time of great disarray. Rend Blackhand stood up at this time as the son of the former Warkif and took over the power of the Horde. Those brainless orc chieftains had no good ideas and could only temporarily obey Rend Blackhand. In this way, Rend Blackhand fled south while gathering orcs stationed in various places. Soon, Rend Blackhand gathered thousands of troops. However, compared to the tens of thousands of troops of the Alliance, Rend Blackhand's army was too small. In addition to the lack of high-end combat power, Rend Blackhand decided to choose a strong castle to defend. In the end, he set his sights on Blackrock Mountain, where there were still a large number of dark iron dwarves, plus the restless fire element inside, which should be able to resist the Alliance's attack. When Roger found the Alliance army had just captured Grimbatol. Because of the lack of troops, the orcs guarding Grimbatol were always distracted, but relying on the terrain of Grimbatol, the orcs still caused heavy casualties to the Alliance army. Seeing Roger, Lothar was deeply helpless. Before the victory, the armies of various countries began to compete for merit and repeatedly disobeyed orders. Otherwise, with the help of the Wild Hammer dwarves, Grimbatol could have been easily occupied, and the casualties would have been at least 3 times less than now. One general's success is built on the bones of thousands of soldiers. Roger was very disgusted by the behavior of these noble generals who only had merit in their eyes and no soldiers' lives. But he couldn't do anything about it. The armies of various countries only obeyed the orders of the noble generals of their own countries. If the noble generals disobeyed orders, even if Emperor Thoradin was resurrected, there would be no way. This was the downside of the Alliance quickly defeating the Horde. The nobles of various countries began to ignore the orcs. The so-called arrogant soldiers are bound to lose. Roger was deeply worried about this. He wanted to kill fewer people by quickly resolving the orcs, but according to the noble general's mess, the people who died less in the early stage might be made up for in the later stage. Moreover, he and Lothar were helpless about this and could only watch these soldiers go to their deaths. The allied forces pursued south, and the orcs had to be cleared everywhere, which gave Rend Blackhand time to organize defenses. A dark iron dwarf found Rend Blackhand, "Respected Warkif, I have a way to strengthen the orcs." Rend Blackhand knew this dark iron dwarf. It was he who had bewitched the dragon Moklan and killed his brother Maim. Rend Blackhand stared at the dwarf with a stern face, constantly thinking about the dwarf's words in his mind. The dwarf was right. The orcs had already reached this point. What impact would it have even if they were deceived again? But what if what this dwarf said was true? Then he might have hope of holding Blackrock Mountain. As long as he could hold Blackrock Mountain, reinforcements from Draenor would arrive. By then, even if he couldn't conquer the entire continent, he could still seize enough land to survive. Thinking of this, he said to the dwarf in a deep voice, "If you dare to lie to me, I will chop off your head with an axe. You will not be disappointed." The dwarf lowered his head and promised. When Rend Blackhand couldn't see, a strange smile appeared on his face. Chapter 66. On a small hill on the west side of Blackrock Mountain sits a horde-style altar. "Is this Gul'dan's Altar of Storms?" Rend Blackhand asked in surprise. "That's right." The dark iron dwarf led Rend Blackhand onto the Altar of Storms. "I once saw Gul'dan use it from afar to strengthen ogres. After Gul'dan left, I often came here to study its operating principles, and I finally found a way to activate it not long ago." Rend Blackhand was very excited to hear this. If it were any other strengthening method, he wouldn't be able to tell if the dwarf was telling the truth. But he was too familiar with the Altar of Storms, so it seemed that this dwarf was not lying. Then, he had a guard stand in the center of the altar. "Let me see your results." "As you command." The dark iron dwarf cast a spell to activate the altar. Bursts of thunder appeared in the sky above the altar, followed by a large amount of flames. Thunder mixed with flames poured into the guard's body. Rend Blackhand was furious. "Stop, what are you doing?" The dwarf stopped casting. "Chieftain, I am not an orc after all, so I need to make some changes to use it." "Ah!" The guard suddenly let out a loud roar, attracting everyone's attention. Under everyone's gaze, the guard's body began to swell, his muscles became more defined, and streaks of thunder and flame runes appeared on his bare skin. In the roar, the guard condensed thunder and flames in his hands and threw them towards a distant hilltop, causing a burst of explosions. After the smoke cleared, 2 large pits appeared on the hilltop, with destructive power comparable to that of a skilled shaman. Rend Blackhand's doubts disappeared completely. He looked at the guard. "How do you feel?" "Very good," the guard replied. The dark iron dwarf said at the right time, "Chieftain, with my current ability, I can only strengthen 100 orcs." 100? That's a bit few. Rend Blackhand originally didn't want to risk himself, but the Dark Iron Dwarf's words changed his mind. If he completed the strengthening himself and obtained great power, even if he couldn't defend Blackrock Mountain, he could still lead the Blacktooth clan's elite back to Draenor. Moreover, he was not satisfied. He walked towards the center of the altar while saying to the Dark Iron Dwarf, "Use the maximum amount of energy I can withstand to strengthen me." Of course. Seeing Rend Blackhand step into his trap, the Dark Iron Dwarf said with a smile. The altar was activated again, and a more powerful thunder and flame energy than before condensed in mid-air. Then, a dark aura seeped into it, and along with the thunder and flames, it was poured into Rend Blackhand's body. The super-strong energy caused Rend Blackhand's body to swell rapidly, and he was almost the same size as an ogre. The orcs were a little puzzled. They found that Rend Blackhand not only had a body like an ogre, but even his appearance was similar. Could it be that Rend Blackhand has ogre blood? Just as they were wondering, Rend Blackhand's skin suddenly cracked, and thunder and flames kept gushing out from inside. Ah! Rend Blackhand cried out in pain. After all the thunder and flames had been poured in, he collapsed to the ground. "Chieftain!" The guards immediately went to check, but before they could run over, Rend Blackhand slowly stood up, with red lightning flashing around his body. When Rend Blackhand stood up straight, a bolt of lightning flashed from Rend Blackhand's eyes, causing everyone to take several steps back in shock. "Ah! Haha!" The Dark Iron Dwarf walked forward with a smile, "Respected chieftain, now you have power far surpassing Orgrim." Rend Blackhand looked at his strong body, admiring the energy flowing on it. Although orc traditions place more emphasis on pure physical strength, who would dislike being stronger? Not bad. Rend Blackhand looked at the Dark Iron Dwarf appreciatively. "From now on, you will be the tribe's high priest, and you can choose 100 dwarves to be your subordinates." A hint of disdain flashed across the Dark Iron Dwarf's bright smile. He had no interest in the so-called tribe high priest position. However, he did not express it and accepted it readily. "Thank you, chieftain. Continue to strengthen my guards. As you command." In the next few days, nearly 100 of the Blacktooth clan's most elite soldiers were strengthened. Because they could use the power of thunder and fire, it was a bit inappropriate to call them the Blacktooth clan anymore. So Rend Blackhand separated this elite group into a new clan, the Thunderfire clan. Although the Thunderfire clan had less than 100 people, Rend Blackhand believed that he already had the power to defeat the alliance. According to intelligence from SI-7, the orcs retreated to Blackrock Mountain and occupied favorable terrain. SI-7 originally wanted to gather more detailed information, but failed for some reason. None of the assassins who entered Blackrock Mountain returned alive. The orcs are defending so tightly, they must be hiding some secret. Roger analyzed. This chapter is not over, please click on the next page to continue reading. But, what secrets could the orcs have? Turalion asked. Roger spread his hands. If he knew, he would have said it already. Turalion looked at the map of Blackrock Mountain and laid out the orcs' defensive lines. Even if the orcs are hiding something, we still have to attack Blackrock Mountain. The number of orcs is much smaller, and we can completely take it step by step, gradually nibbling away at the enemy's positions. Lothar nodded. That's right, but for a strong attack, we need covering fire. Roger, you and Kadger and the Elven Dragonhawk Riders will act together to provide us with support from the air. Okay. Roger nodded while glancing at Alyria, and found that she was also looking at him. Turalion frowned slightly. He didn't want Roger and Alyria to get too close. From the moment he met Alyria, he had fallen in love with this beautiful elf. However, since Roger appeared, he and Alyria had no contact at all. Instead, Roger and Alyria had clearly developed a liking for each other after several battles. This made Turalion very unhappy and frustrated. However, he was not the kind of person who would hate because of love. He was a person who knew his limits and would not mess around on the battlefield. Lothar continued to assign tasks. Archmage Antonidas, see if there are any high points around. I need magical support from the mages. Antonidas said, I can build a few towers, so we can overlook the battlefield. Lothar nodded, that would be great. He turned to look at the other generals, pointing out their garrisons and attack targets one by one. Chapter 67. With everything prepared, humanity launched its final offensive. The dozens of defense lines the orcs had established on Blackrock Mountain simultaneously faced the onslaught of humanity. Powerful paladin generals like Turalion, Uther, Sedin de Throhan, Tyrion Fordring, Gavinrad the Dire, and Mograine were all courageous in battle. However, even more courageous were the independent armies of each nation. They all had their own agendas, wanting to seize more merit and prepare for post-war negotiations. The most valiant of them all was the kingdom of Alterac. King Aidan Pernold of Alterac, born into a wealthy family, was not a competent ruler. He was hedonistic and pessimistic. After learning about the strength of the orcs from the Stormwind nobles, he always believed that the alliance would be defeated by the Horde, so he was unwilling to join the alliance. Dominated by this pessimistic mood, he sent people to contact Orgrim, promising to cause trouble within the alliance and hinder its progress. He formulated a series of plans, creating rebellions in Tyr's Hand and assassinating the commander of the Paladins, Uther. However, to his surprise, Orgrim was captured in Kulthalas. Aidan panicked. If Orgrim told the alliance about his collusion with the enemy, then Alterac would inevitably face a purge after the war. Therefore, he ordered the generals of Alterac to make contributions and great achievements, so that he could preserve his throne after the war. Next were the armies of Stromgard. King Thoras Trollbane of Stromgard was an ambitious man. He always believed that the kingdom of Stromgard, which occupied the old capital of the Arathor Empire, was the true heir to the human kingdoms, so he always wanted to seek more land and people. The emergence of the orcs gave him this opportunity. Thoras vigorously promoted the establishment of the alliance and sent out all the regular troops of Stromgard. He not only guarded the coastline of Stromgard, but also sent troops to support the Thandal span, helped the Wildhammer dwarves defend Nordherren, and even sent troops deep into Loch Modan to compete with the orcs for the territory of the Badlands. The orcs were forced to divert a large number of troops in the war with Stromgard. In this regard, Thoras did have remarkable achievements. But he was not satisfied with this, he also wanted to divide more benefits after the war. So, he ordered Dalas to spare no expense to eliminate the remaining orcs. Thirdly, there were the armies of Gilneas. Gen Greymane did not want to join the alliance, because the geographical environment of Gilneas was very superior. Although it was a peninsula, Gilneas's long coastline had countless reefs. Only those familiar with the sea route could bypass the reefs and land on Gilneas's territory, which the orcs obviously could not do. Therefore, Gilneas only needed to defend the land on its back to ensure the safety of the entire country. Within a year after Lothar arrived in Lord Aeron, Gilneas did not join the alliance, but instead added to the walls guarding against beasts in the north, building the tall Greymane Wall. When the alliance defeated the orcs at the Thandal span, Greymane saw the hope of the alliance winning. Therefore, he joined the alliance, seizing the fruits of victory while avoiding being targeted by other human kingdoms after the war. He sent Lord Godfrey to command the Gilnean army, telling him to just go through the motions. But this Lord Godfrey had his own plans. He wanted a higher position and a higher title. Therefore, after the counter-offensive began, Godfrey led the Gilnean army to compete for bravery in every battle. Although the losses were great, Godfrey quickly entered the eyes of the Alliance High Command and soon gained the right to lead troops independently. The attack on Blackrock Mountain was the final battle, the last chance for Godfrey to gain merit. Whether he could go further depended on this time, and Godfrey would certainly not let it go. As for the dead soldiers, they could be recruited again. Roger and Varisa also flew up the mountain, preparing to continue to cover the Alliance army on the ground. Just at this time, the sky suddenly became gloomy, and dark clouds covered the sky. Red lightning flashed in the dark clouds, emitting a terrifying aura. A griffin squad under the dark clouds was attacked by red lightning. Before they could even dodge, they were burned to ashes. "What is this?" Varisa asked in surprise. Roger's expression was solemn. "Lower altitude, stay away from the dark clouds." Varisa took out a whistle and issued an order, and the Dragonhawk riders gradually approached the two. After a while, Kurdran also came with the Griffin riders. "Rogers, is some kind of magic brewing there?" "I'm not sure, but it's better to be careful." Roger scanned Blackrock Mountain and pointed to a hill and said, "Let's land there and continue to cover our allies." Everyone nodded and landed on the hill that Roger mentioned. This hill was high enough to support about half of the Alliance army. After landing, Roger immediately shot a signal arrow to notify Lothar of his location. Soon, several magical glows flashed, and Antonidas teleported over with several mages. He took out a magical item in the shape of a watchtower. After pouring magic power into it, a watchtower model appeared on the top of the mountain, and then quickly filled with bricks. In less than a minute, a watchtower appeared in front of everyone. "Let's go up." Antonidas took the lead into the watchtower, and Roger and others followed. When they reached the top of the watchtower, Antonidas activated a defensive spell, and the other mages felt relieved to cast spells. Roger and the rangers also provided remote support, and soon helped the main force of the allied forces open a road up the mountain. However, the watchtower quickly attracted the attention of the orcs. At the top of Black Rock Mountain, a team of dark iron dwarves rushed over, casting spells to harass the watchtower while summoning a large number of fire elementals to attack the dwarves guarding the watchtower. Although the dwarves had skin like rock, they still couldn't withstand the burning of the fire elementals, and soon some people were injured. Roger hurriedly jumped down from the watchtower, used Windwalk to approach the dark iron dwarves, and repeatedly used counterspell to interrupt the dark iron dwarves' summons. However, Roger's counterspell was ineffective on a dark iron dwarf in gorgeous clothes. The dark iron dwarf showed a strange smile and summoned a huge fire elemental that rushed towards Roger. Roger's heart palpitated. He ignored the fire elemental and took out the dragon soul, aiming it at the dark iron dwarf. He felt the aura of Deathwing on the dark iron dwarf. Chapter 68. As expected, the black iron dwarf stopped immediately upon seeing the dragon soul, constantly gathering energy in his hands but not releasing it. Feeling the familiar dark aura from that energy, Roger was even more certain that he was Deathwing. Therefore, Roger didn't dare to act rashly either. He knew Deathwing's power too well. If he didn't strike a fatal blow, Deathwing would definitely have the ability to instantly kill him. While the two of them remained still, the other black iron dwarves were moving. They approached Roger with sinister smiles, wanting to kill this human who was trying to stop them. Just then, several arrows shot over, piercing the heads of these black iron dwarves. Varisa Windrunner flew over on a dragon hawk, constantly firing frost arrows to consume the fire elemental's energy. However, the fire elemental summoned by Deathwing was not an ordinary fire elemental, but a powerful fire elemental lord, and Varisa Windrunner's frost arrows couldn't inflict a fatal blow on it at all. Seeing the fire elemental lord approaching Roger, two giant water elementals suddenly appeared, blocking it. Antonidas had made his move. With the help of the two water elementals, Varisa Windrunner kept the fire elemental lord occupied. However, it would still take some time to eliminate the fire elemental lord. Roger stared intently at Deathwing, constantly thinking about Deathwing's purpose in doing this. He had already seen that Deathwing wanted to stall him here, to lure him away from the real target. However, even knowing Deathwing's scheme, Roger couldn't figure out who the target of the scheme was. Just then, a group of unusually tall orcs suddenly appeared on the summit of Black Rock Mountain, launching a charge against the main force of the Alliance from a high vantage point. This is... Roger's expression changed drastically. How could the orcs still have a trump card? Those orcs charged into the main force of the Alliance, all wielding great swords in both hands, killing Alliance soldiers one by one. Tyrion Fordring, as the vanguard of the main force, immediately led the paladins to meet them, but before they could get close, the tallest orc stomped his foot, knocking the paladins to the ground with flame-infused lightning. The orcs rushed past, using great swords imbued with the power of lightning to kill the paladins. This was the greatest loss of life since the founding of the paladins. Tyrion Fordring's body flashed with immense holy light, repelling the orcs. When he stood up, he realized that more than half of the 20 or so paladins he had led were lost. His heart was filled with anger, but he knew that now was not the time to be angry, because those orcs were already heading towards where Lothar was. Damn it! Follow me quickly, to rescue Marshal Lothar. Tyrion Fordring gathered the surviving paladins and launched a charge towards the rear of the Blackhand clan. Rend Blackhand disregarded Tyrion Fordring. He left a few Blackhand warriors to block Tyrion Fordring and the others, and continued to kill Lothar. As long as he killed Lothar, he could turn defeat into victory. He would accomplish what Orgrim Doomhammer had failed to do, and those orc chieftains would surely submit to his feat. At that time, he would defeat all enemies: humans, dwarves, elves. Also, he wanted to rescue Orgrim Doomhammer. He wanted to see Orgrim Doomhammer kneel at his feet and repent for killing Maim. Lothar stopped Windsor's words. I know the orcs came prepared, but if I choose to escape, it will inevitably damage the morale of the Alliance. Roger said that if we can't take Black Rock Mountain in one battle, it will be very difficult to take it later. He's right. How much allied power did we gather to have our current strength? It will be impossible to gather the Alliance again next time. Therefore, we must conquer Black Rock Mountain this time, even if it costs me my life. Hearing this, Windsor bit his teeth hard. He drew his sword and shouted loudly, "Iron Horse Brotherhood, follow me!" The Iron Horse Brotherhood was a knightly organization in Stormwind City, and its members were the most outstanding knights of the Kingdom of Stormwind, just like how High Elves Rangers joined the Fars Triders. Since Stormwind City was breached, Lothar expanded the Iron Horse Brotherhood again, and many knights and paladins from other kingdoms joined it, the most famous of whom was Tyrion Fordring. As Lothar's most loyal partner, Windsor had always been responsible for protecting Lothar's safety. Now that the orcs wanted to kill Lothar, they had to step over his corpse. Dozens of Iron Horse Brotherhood members fearlessly launched a charge against the Blackhand warriors, but before they could approach the Blackhand warriors, they were blasted away by the flame lightning emitted by the Blackhand warriors. Windsor fell on a rock and passed out, and the others were also burned by the flame lightning. Rend Blackhand grinned and casually swung his sword to kill the knights in his hands. Then, he continued to walk towards Lothar. Today, no one could save him. The surrounding human soldiers looked at the Blackhand orcs in fear. They had never seen such powerful monsters. Lothar's expression was solemn, but he was still fearless. He raised Kulzarum, the royal sword, and charged towards Rend Blackhand. Rend Blackhand couldn't help but sneer, casually swinging his sword to knock Kulzarum away, and then pierced Lothar's body with his sword. The flame lightning on the sword erupted, blasting Lothar away and slamming him down under the rock where he had just stood. Ah! A roar came from behind Rend Blackhand, followed by a huge burst of holy light that struck Rend Blackhand, staggering him. The other Blackhand orcs turned their heads and rushed towards Tyrion Fordring, who had launched the sneak attack. Seeing Lothar's death with his own eyes, Tyrion Fordring was extremely angry. His whole body surged with holy light, and he slammed the Blackhand orcs back, quickly rushing towards Rend Blackhand. Rend Blackhand struck back, his great sword severing Tyrion Fordring's sword and hitting him. Under the protection of the holy light, Tyrion Fordring was not seriously injured, but he was still knocked away. The fallen Tyrion Fordring saw Kulzarum beside him, picked it up, and charged towards Rend Blackhand again. Holy light and flame lightning clashed together, erupting into a violent energy collision that knocked down all creatures within hundreds of yards. Roger's expression changed when he saw the location of the mushroom cloud explosion. He glared angrily at Deathwing, "Is this your purpose?" Deathwing retreated while answering, "You captured Orgrim Doomhammer, and Blackhand killed Lothar. Now it's fair." "Stop!" Varisa Windrunner was dissatisfied with Deathwing's departure and couldn't help but want to chase after him. "Let him leave." Roger stopped Varisa Windrunner. The dragon's soul was aimed at the Fire Elemental Lord, and a rainbow light pierced its body, sending it back to the Fire Elemental plane. Looking at the place where Deathwing disappeared, Roger clenched his fists. He felt that he was still too weak. Although he could slaughter ordinary people, he was still powerless in the face of this world-destroying enemy. Chapter 69. Rend Blackhand and Turalion fought fiercely, preventing anyone else from getting close. Seeing that they couldn't help Blackhand, the Thunderlord warriors immediately turned their attention to the surrounding humans. How could these ordinary soldiers be a match for the powerful Thunderlord warriors? They were quickly forced to retreat. The death of Lothar completely demoralized these ordinary soldiers, and all they could think about now was saving their lives. Pushing through the routed soldiers, the B Company warriors charged towards the Thunderlord warriors without a word. Caracal, wielding two battle axes, collided with a tall Thunderlord warrior. Although the red dragon armor blocked the flames and lightning, his face was still burned with a huge wound. However, Caracal didn't care about the pain on his face. He knocked the Thunderlord warrior to the ground, and his battle axes continuously chopped at the Thunderlord warrior's head. The Thunderlord warrior raised his weapon to defend, but his prideful strength was no match for Caracal. In just 2 blows, his 2 great swords were knocked away by Caracal. Looking at Caracal's red glowing eyes, the Thunderlord warrior felt a strange sense of fear. A Thunderlord warrior next to him wanted to go to his rescue, but John tackled him to the ground. John forcefully strangled the Thunderlord warrior's neck and plunged the red dragon sword into his throat. The Thunderlord warrior struggled in his dying moments, and his great sword slashed across John's face, leaving a deep, bone-exposing wound. Several Thunderlord warriors nearby immediately launched flames and lightning, trying to ambush John and Caracal. Just as the lightning was about to hit them, 2 magic shields appeared on their bodies. It was the arcane mage lion who had saved them. "Die! You damn orcs!" Messner angrily hurled the giant fireball in his hand at the Thunderlord orcs, who were terrified. They were fighting with the B Company warriors and never expected that a human mage would use strategic spells at close range, disregarding the safety of his own men. Was he crazy? However, what they didn't expect even more was that the B Company warriors didn't seem surprised at all, and even took the opportunity to entangle them, preventing them from dodging. Boom! The large fireball directly leveled a hilltop, and the Thunder Lord warriors, along with the B Company warriors, were all blown away. Relying on their strong physique, the Thunder Lord warriors survived the explosion, but when they got up, they found that the B Company warriors had already rushed towards them with their weapons. Damn it! These bastards are crazy. Is this a war? This is a fight to the death. The B Company warriors' desperate fighting style frightened the Thunder Lord warriors. They were the ones who used this kind of desperate fighting style against their enemies in the past, but they never expected to face this kind of desperate fighting style themselves. The Thunder Lord warriors quickly got up, looking for weapons to counterattack. But at this moment, a strong blizzard suddenly appeared in the sky, and the intense cold made them feel very uncomfortable. Fortunately, they possessed the power of flame within their bodies, coupled with the scorching heat of the burning steppes. They only froze for a moment before returning to normal. It was during this moment of freezing that the B Company warriors had already rushed in front of them. They ignored the impact of the blizzard, and didn't even dispel the frost that had formed on their red dragon armor, all in order to rush to the Thunder Lord warriors as quickly as possible. The Thunder Lord warriors were caught off guard, and many were stabbed and slashed by the B Company warriors. John, with his superb martial skills, directly jumped onto the back of a Thunder Lord warrior and cut off his head. The flame and lightning within the Thunder Lord warrior's body lost control, directly blasting John away, sending him flying several yards away. His face was charred, and the power of lightning was surging within his body, but it still couldn't stop his determination to get up and fight. A Thunder Lord warrior rushed towards John, knocked him to the ground, and raised his great sword to end his life. Caracal rushed over from the side and knocked the Thunder Lord warrior away. He forcefully slammed his head into the Thunder Lord warrior's head, endured the dizziness, and swung his battle axe at his neck. Messner indiscriminately released Dragon's Breath on the battlefield, and the intense flames scorched both enemies and allies. The Thunder Lord warriors couldn't withstand the scorching flames first. Although they could use the power of flame, they didn't have any fire-resistant equipment on them. On the other hand, although the B Company warriors couldn't use the power of flame, the red dragon armor they wore was extremely fire-resistant and didn't care about the flames at all. In the face of adversity, the Thunder Lord warriors also went berserk. They desperately released the power of lightning, and lightning bolts constantly streaked across the battlefield. Lion couldn't defend against it at all, and many B Company warriors were struck by lightning. Messner was also struck by lightning and paused his spell casting. Losing the scorching flames, the Thunder Lord warriors regained their full strength and, relying on their powerful strength and lightning power, the B Company warriors quickly fell into a disadvantage and suffered casualties. Seeing this situation, Messner and the Frost Mage Ghana exchanged a look. The two of them condensed the power of fire and ice and then crashed into each other. The two incompatible and powerful energies instantly triggered a violent explosion, and the entire Black Rock Mountain trembled. All the warriors couldn't stand firm, and some even rolled down the mountain. Rumble. The sound of the explosion followed, deafening everyone. Rend Blackhand and Turalion's battle was also interrupted. The two of them looked at the huge pit that had appeared not far away, and both were furious. They glared at each other fiercely and charged at each other again, engaging in another fierce battle. Roger and Alyria had already come to provide support. Seeing the shockwave coming towards them, he quickly cast a magic shield to protect the two of them. After the shockwave passed, he looked in shock at the huge pit on the ground and the scattered corpses. Before the Amini Warhawk had landed, he jumped down from it and used Blink to get to the battlefield. All that could be seen was the ground covered with the corpses of B Company warriors and Thunder Lord warriors, and John was lying not far in front of him, motionless. Ah! Roger cried out in pain. His last remaining family member had left him like this. Alyria also jumped down from the Dragon Hawk. She walked to Roger's side and put her arms around him. Roger, you must pull yourself together, you still have us. Roger was filled with self-blame. If he hadn't asked B Company to protect Lothar, the B Company warriors wouldn't have chosen to fight to the death because of Lothar's death. He was the one who killed John and B Company. Chapter 70. Not far away, several Thunderfire warriors struggled to their feet. They were filled with lingering fear. Had they not been far from the center of the explosion, they wouldn't have had any chance of survival. Even so, they were seriously injured. They glanced at Roger and Aurelia, clearly recognizing their identities. So, they planned to quietly leave the battlefield and retreat back to Blackrock Spire. However, before they could take a step, they were grasped by a giant arcane hand. Roger's scarlet eyes were filled with rage. He opened his right hand and clenched it fiercely, instantly crushing the Thunderfire warriors into meat paste with the arcane hand. Aurelia looked at him with concern. Roger. Roger reached out and touched Aurelia's face. Don't worry, I know what I'm doing. He turned his head and looked towards Rend Blackhand, who was battling Turalion, and suddenly disappeared from his spot. When he reappeared, he was already amidst Rend Blackhand's flames and lightning. A mana shield blocked the attack of the flames and lightning, and Roger kicked Rend Blackhand away. Turalion stopped his attack, looking in astonishment at Roger, this uninvited guest. Rend Blackhand got up from the ground and said mockingly, "What? Trying to gang up on me? Is this the warrior's honor of you humans? But I must see this guy's corpse. I doubt that will happen." Roger sneered as he looked at Rend Blackhand. "Orc, don't you worship Magara? I will let you die in your revered Magara." As he spoke, Roger threw out a red dragon sword, which was John's weapon. Rend Blackhand looked at Roger amusingly, "Haha. I know you, Roger's Kaisham, the orc slayer praised by humans, the stealer of the Fireblade Swordsman's inheritance. You really don't think that after obtaining the Fireblade Swordsman's inheritance, you can defeat me, do you? I am a powerful warrior from the Blackrock clan, and now I possess such great power. You actually abandoned the advantage of magic and want to engage in Magara with me, you're simply courting death." Roger calmly drew the Demon Bane sword. "You overestimate yourself too much. Oh right, from now on, I will change my last name to Orcslayer until the orcs are exterminated." Ha ha ha. Rend Blackhand couldn't suppress his laughter, he had never seen such a foolish enemy. However, since the enemy was offering himself up to die, how could he possibly refuse? "Good. I accept your challenge." Rend Blackhand, holding two giant swords, launched a charge towards Roger. He wanted to kill Roger as quickly as possible. After all, there were still tens of thousands of human troops that he needed to defeat. Roger watched Rend Blackhand's giant swords coming down, immediately dodged to the side, and with a thrust of the Demon Bane sword, left a wound on Rend Blackhand's arm. Rend Blackhand didn't care about this small wound, he swept his giant swords horizontally, attacking Roger again. Roger remained calm, dodging while counter-attacking again, still leaving a small wound on Rend Blackhand's body. Before long, Rend Blackhand had more than 20 wounds on his body, the blood flowing from so many wounds stained half of Rend Blackhand's body, making him look like a blood-soaked man. Rend Blackhand finally realized the difference between him and Roger. His powerful strength was completely useless in front of Roger because he simply couldn't attack Roger. If Roger hadn't intentionally been toying with him, he would have been killed by Roger long ago. Damn it, how is this guy so powerful? It's all the Fireblade clan's fault, they couldn't even protect their own inheritance and actually let this human learn it. The terror of Grandmaster level Wuji swordsmanship is such. The strengthened Rend Blackhand was already far stronger than a normal hero, but even so, he still lost in the face of Wuji swordsmanship. Rend Blackhand attributed this to the Fireblade clan's inheritance, but in reality, Wuji swordsmanship was far superior to the Fireblade clan's swordsmanship. In terms of martial skills alone, Wuji swordsmanship was number one in the world. Rend Blackhand launched another attack, but there was nothing he could do to Roger. As blood flowed, he began to feel dizzy. Rend Blackhand knew that he couldn't continue like this. He didn't want to die from excessive blood loss, that kind of death was simply a warrior's shame. So, he violently activated the power of flame and lightning within his body, even if it violated the sanctity of Magara, he had to do it. Roger dodged the bombardment of lightning, saying without surprise, "I've been waiting for you to do this." Rend Blackhand's face turned pale and then white. Roger's understated words shamed him more than any insulting words. He roared, unleashing a warcry while also casting bloodlust on himself. He had to kill Roger, so that he could preserve his face. If he couldn't kill Roger even under such circumstances, then no matter how strong he was, he wouldn't be qualified to become the Warchief of the Horde. With all the buffs stacked, Rend Blackhand frantically attacked Roger. Every strike carried flames and lightning. As long as even a bit of it touched Roger, Rend Blackhand was confident that he could take the opportunity to kill him. Roger scoffed, and the Demon Bane sword instantly touched the flames and lightning, the wildly surging flames and lightning disappeared without a trace the moment they came into contact with the Demon Bane sword. Rend Blackhand looked at the scene in front of him in astonishment, not understanding what was going on. Roger took advantage of his dazed state and slashed his sword across his thigh, severing his hamstring. Rend Blackhand staggered and knelt on the ground, his astonishment turning into horror. The power of magic had no effect on Roger, then wouldn't that mean that he was now at Roger's mercy? He guessed correctly. Roger severed his other hamstring with another sword, then dodged his dying struggle before saying, "Why do you think I used this sword? It's to prevent you from using the power of the elements." He slashed the tendons of Rend Blackhand's hands with his sword, "Otherwise, I would have used the dullest weapon to make you experience more pain." He severed the last tendons of Rend Blackhand's hands. "How much slaughter have the orcs caused? I don't need to list them one by one, do I?" He cut off Rend's ear with a sword, "This is for my father." He cut off Rend's other ear with another sword, "This is for my mother." Another sword, "This is for John." Another sword, "This is for Sir Lothar." Another sword, "This is for Messner." Another sword, "This is for Lion." Another sword, "This is for Ghana." Another sword, "This is for Caracal." Another sword. Roger forcibly shaved off all the flesh from Rend Blackhand's body, leaving only a skeleton. Then, he used arcane magic to conjure flames and burned Rend Blackhand's corpse to ashes, scattering them in the wind. Even 1,000 cuts and 10,000 pieces, crushing bones and scattering ashes, were still not enough to relieve Roger's hatred. Chapter 71. Roger. Aurelia looked at Roger with some fear, not expecting Roger to have such a terrifying side. Roger looked back at her and said somewhat coldly, "Have everyone retreat." Then he walked straight towards Black Rock Mountain. This time, he would not let go of any orcs, nor would he let go of anyone who dared to help the orcs. Soon, he passed the Alliance army. The orcs still wanted to stop him, but any orc who dared to rush over died by his sword. Some orcs recognized Roger, "It's the Orc Slayer." The orcs rooted. He defended against what the mana shield could defend against, and dodged what it couldn't. Soon, Roger stood in front of the gate of Blackrock Spire. The gate had been sealed by the orcs and dark iron dwarves. Roger took out the dragon soul, and a rainbow light evaporated the gate and blasted away the defensive works behind the gate. All the orcs and dark iron dwarves inside the defensive works died, without even a chance to be saved. Roger walked into Blackrock Spire. The humans behind him stopped when they saw Roger suddenly using such a powerful weapon as the dragon soul. The generals of various countries ordered the soldiers, "Advance! Keep advancing, kill into Blackrock Spire." "Wait!" Aurelia rode a dragonhawk and landed in front of everyone. "Roger has ordered you to retreat immediately." The generals of various countries seemed to have heard a great joke. "Ms. Windrunner, are you kidding us? That's right, victory is right in front of us, and you're asking us to retreat? What? Do the elves want to take all the credit? What right does Roger have to ask us to retreat? Is he the commander of the Alliance? He's just a consultant, and one privately appointed by Sir Lothar at that." "Madam, please get out of the way." Turalion hurried over. "What happened?" Aurelia quickly said, "Roger has ordered everyone to retreat." "On what basis? He entered Blackrock Spire himself, why doesn't he let us in? Could it be that he wants to take all the spoils inside Blackrock Spire for himself?" The generals of various countries clamored, which made Turalion very embarrassed. He said to Aurelia, "You see, without a reasonable reason, I can't issue an order to retreat." What reasonable explanation did Aurelia have? Roger didn't tell her the reason at all. Just as she was in trouble, suddenly a rainbow light pierced through the ceiling of Blackrock Spire and shot into the sky. Then Roger rode an mini war bear and flew out from it, followed by a powerful flame spewing out from Blackrock Spire, as if burning the entire sky. Everyone's faces changed drastically. Without Roger's warning, they decisively ran down the mountain. In mid-air, Roger shouted loudly, "Ragnaros, I will definitely kill you." Saying that, he raised the dragon soul again and shot it into Blackrock Spire. Blackrock Spire could no longer hold on under the attack of the flames and the dragon soul, and collapsed with a bang. A series of whispers echoed in Roger's ears, "Rogers, continue to attack Blackrock Mountain, you must avenge John. Kill all the orcs and dark iron dwarves, John's revenge cannot be settled like this. Rogers, don't you feel guilty? It's all this damn war that made you lose your loved ones, end it, kill everyone involved in the war." Roger only felt a splitting headache, and the bewitchment of these whispers made his heart flutter. Damn it! With his powerful willpower, Roger put away the dragon soul. The sound of whispers became much smaller, gradually turning into murmurs. He couldn't hold on any longer, his whole body's mana collapsed, the Amini war bear disintegrated in the air, and he fell straight from the air to the ground. Roger! Aurelia exclaimed and quickly rode the dragonhawk over. She threw out a magic net to catch Roger and turned to fly down the mountain. The flames on Blackrock Spire were still raging, like a erupting volcano. People couldn't wait to grow 2 more legs, wanting to escape this dangerous place as soon as possible. However, by the time they ran down the mountain, the flames on Blackrock Spire had slowly shrunk back, only the red in the sky had not diminished, as if telling people that they had escaped with their lives. Turalyon wanted to stop the Allied forces, but the soldiers who were full of fear only wanted to go home as soon as possible. The generals of various countries also didn't want to stay in this strange place and retreated in a hurry. Only a few troops stayed behind, the dwarves and elves stayed behind. They helped Turalyon collect the remains of the sacrificed soldiers on Blackrock Mountain and transported them to a place far away from Blackrock Mountain for burial, lest the volcanic eruption destroy their graves. After doing these things, Turalyon did not choose to retreat, but marched into Redridge Mountains. The territory of Stormwind Kingdom had not yet been recovered, and the crisis of the orcs had not been completely resolved, so he could not withdraw his troops. At the same time, he sent someone to contact Admiral Dalen Proudmoore, asking him to recover Stormwind City from the sea. Roger woke up from his sleep and found himself back in his home in Redridge Mountains. He climbed up, looked at the familiar environment, and felt a little emotional. The laughter of his parents and John seemed to still echo in the house, and Roger couldn't help but burst into tears. Creak! The door was pushed open, and Aurelia walked in. Seeing Roger wake up, she was pleasantly surprised. Roger, you're awake. Seeing Aurelia's concerned eyes, a trace of a smile finally appeared on Roger's sad face. From now on, I only have you. Aurelia had been a little concerned about Roger's actions on Blackrock Mountain. She didn't know whether she should continue to walk with Roger. But after hearing Roger's words, Aurelia's heart melted, and she also understood Roger's behavior. If she had lost her loved ones, she might have been as crazy as Roger. She hugged Roger in her arms and murmured, I will always be with you. Roger also reached out and hugged Aurelia, closing his eyes to enjoy this moment of warmth. The morning a few days later, Roger woke up from his sleep. After a few days of recuperation, he had recovered almost completely, and today he decided to return to the army. He lowered his head and kissed Aurelia's forehead. Aurelia opened her eyes, looking at Roger happily. I really hope to see you first thing every morning. Me too. Roger said with a smile. If it weren't for Aurelia, he would probably have dragged his riddled heart into the darkness. Overusing the dragon soul caused the darkness hidden inside to erupt, and the whispers of the old gods had been bewitching his heart. Roger didn't know how long he could last, so he had to find a way to shield the whispers as soon as possible, or... He looked in the direction of the dark portal. Hide in a place without old gods. Chapter 72. The two put on their armor and flew to Stormwind on dragon hawks. During Roger's coma, Turalyon led the remaining alliance forces to recover the lands of the Kingdom of Stormwind. After Dalen Proudmoore recovered Stormwind City and judged the orcs' crimes, Varian Rin led the people of Stormwind back to their homeland. Surviving members of the Brotherhood of the Horse, including Bolverfordragon and Windsor, took over the city defense of Stormwind and led the army to recover the old lands of the Kingdom of Stormwind. Today, several months later, is the day of King Varian's official coronation, and the Alliance high-level officials and nobles from various countries are celebrating. Although Roger disdained to associate with the nobles, he had a good relationship with Varian, and out of friendship, he also had to attend the ceremony. Sitting on the Dragon Hawk, Roger opened the system. In the Battle of Blackrock Mountain, Roger's Hunter class rose to level 26, and 2 skill points were used to upgrade Blazing Arrow and Thunder Arrow respectively. Because he killed Rend Blackhand, he achieved the achievement of the Blackrock clan, and the Grandmaster of the Blade leveled up to level 32, and was rewarded with 5 skill points. It cost 3 skill points to upgrade Bladestorm to the Master level, and the remaining 4 skill points were used to upgrade Flame Body and Dauntless Charge to the Master level. Using the Dragon Soul to kill a large number of orcs, Dark Iron Dwarves, and Fire Elementals, collapsing Blackrock Spire, and achieving the Blackrock Spire achievement, rewarded 5 free levels, and another 5 free skill points. Roger upgraded the Arcane Master to level 40, and it cost 8 skill points to upgrade Arcane Intellect to the Grand Master level, and the remaining 2 skill points were used to upgrade Conjure Food to the Master level. Because of the excessive use of the Dragon Soul, the whispers of the old gods appeared in the status bar, and he was constantly faced with the temptation of the old gods. Arriving at Stormwind City, General Marcus Jonathan of the city defense greeted the two. Jonathan was also a member of the Brotherhood of the Horse. He knew Roger, and although the relationship was not good, it was not bad either. "Rogers, welcome back." He hugged Roger and said, "His Majesty the King has been talking about you, which has made many nobles very unhappy." "Of course they are unhappy to hear my name," Roger said disdainfully. "If it weren't for Sir Lothar's sacrifice, would they dare to return to Stormwind City?" Jonathan smiled wryly. "Rogers, you are still so tough. But I must remind you that Stormwind City has finally achieved peace, and everyone does not want to restart the conflict. Don't worry, I know what I'm doing." Roger patted Jonathan on the shoulder and entered the city with Alyria. According to his and Lothar's plan, the nobles of Stormwind City had to be purged. The nobles also knew about this, and it can be said that Lothar's sacrifice prevented them from wandering abroad. Without Lothar, Roger's desire to purge them would inevitably be opposed by many people, including the backbone of Stormwind City, the Brotherhood of the Horse. Soon, the two passed through the crowd and arrived in front of the palace. Windsor was responsible for guarding the palace. He was happy to see Roger and walked up. "Rogers, I'm so glad to see you again." Roger smiled and hugged him, sighing in his heart that Windsor had a big life. After being stunned by the Black Rock warriors, he was lucky enough to escape the explosion created by Messner and Ghana. Soldiers who were collecting the remains discovered that he still had breath, and that's how he was saved. After a period of recuperation, he was immediately reused like other members of the Brotherhood of the Horse, and was promoted to Major General, one of the few senior generals in Stormwind City. "Me too. Lady Windrunner." Windsor greeted Alyria, then winked at Roger and said in a low voice, "You have really done us people of Stormwind City proud." Roger spread his hands. "Who told me to be so charming?" Alyria secretly gave Roger a white eye, but did not interrupt his man's boasting. The two chatted for a while before Roger said goodbye to Windsor and walked into the palace with Alyria. The guards of Stormwind City were all veterans who had participated in the war. They knew Roger's role in the war, so when they saw Roger, they all paid their respects to Roger. Roger returned the salute one by one. Alyria asked, "It seems you're not that unpopular after all. Not everyone knows how to be grateful." Roger smiled, and then said disdainfully, "Nor does everyone know how to be grateful." Alyria turned her head to look forward, only to see a large group of nobles in full dress, talking and laughing loudly, toasting and exchanging drinks, very lively. If you didn't know, you would think that they were the ones who went into battle to kill the enemy and eliminate the orcs. Some nobles noticed Roger and immediately stopped talking and looked over. Soon, the palace was silent, as if Roger had pressed the mute button. A burst of footsteps suddenly appeared, and a figure emerged from the crowd. Varian ran quickly to Roger's side and looked at him excitedly. "Roger, you're finally back." Roger laughed, "You look like a man now." Varian immediately straightened his chest and nodded vigorously, "Of course, I have always been a man." "Rogers." Balver also walked over, "Welcome back." "You're wrong, not many people here welcome me." Roger shook hands with Balver and said, "I know I'm annoying, so I won't waste your time, I'll leave in a while." Balver didn't expect Roger to be so straightforward, and was a little embarrassed and didn't know what to say. Roger didn't embarrass him, but took out a magic package and handed it to Varian. "Your Majesty, this is my congratulatory gift." "Roger." Varian looked at him helplessly. He really wanted Roger to stay. Roger said seriously, "From now on, you are the king, and you must have your own opinions. Moreover, don't easily trust anyone, including what you see and hear. The only thing you can trust is your own brain. Learning to think is the first lesson you have to learn." Chapter 73. After instructing Varian, Roger scanned the crowd and then turned to leave. As he walked out of the palace, he frowned. Why wasn't there any trace of Black Dragon aura? Could it be that Onyxia wasn't lurking in Stormwind at this time? Such an error made Roger very worried. He didn't know if it was because he misremembered or because history had changed. If it was the latter, it would bring too much uncertainty. After saying goodbye to Windsor and Jonathan, Roger and Alyria set off again on their dragon hawks, heading for the Black Morass. Under the corruption of the Orcish warlock's fell energy, the southern part of the Black Morass no longer existed, leaving only a desolate land. After the Alliance army set foot on this land, they gave it a new name, the Blasted Lands. The northern part of the Black Morass, in memory of those who died in the war, was named the Swamp of Sorrows. Turalyon led a large army here and built a fortress called Netherguard Keep to monitor the dark portal and prevent the orcs from making a comeback. Turalyon's expression was unusually complex when he saw Roger and Alleria. He already knew Alleria's feelings for Roger, and he felt very uncomfortable. However, putting personal feelings aside, he still very much hoped for Roger's arrival. "I'm sorry." Roger was stunned. Shouldn't he be the one apologizing? After all, he had essentially stolen Turalyon's wife and cuckolded him. But Turalyon's next words caused Roger's expression to change drastically. "When we were collecting the bodies, we didn't find the remains of B Company soldiers. They must have been stolen by someone." "What?" Roger never expected that someone would be interested in stealing corpses at this time. Could someone be learning necromancy? But that's not right. According to the timeline, besides demons, only Orcish warlocks currently knew necromancy. The Lich King hadn't been born yet, Nazul was still alive and well, and Kel'Thuzad hadn't researched necromancy. Why would anyone be interested in B Company's corpses? Is it just B Company's corpses? Turalyon nodded. Although the bodies of many soldiers are missing, it's because they were killed by magic and couldn't leave any remains. We did a lot of investigation, and only B Company's corpses were missing in that area. Roger frowned. He felt as if a conspiracy was unfolding around him. Alleria gently stroked his arm. "You should think of it in a positive light. Perhaps they didn't die." Roger's heart suddenly pounded. If he gave a wry smile. With such a powerful explosion, the chances of John and the others surviving were slim. Moreover, if they were really alive, he wouldn't have been unable to sense it at the time. Alleria was only saying that to comfort him. "I'm fine." Roger looked at Turalyon. "Is there any activity at the dark portal?" "No." Turalyon shook his head. "After Archmage Kadger destroyed the dark portal, it has been very quiet. But I always feel that something is wrong. The orcs failed too easily. With my transmigrator cheat helping, of course it was easy." However, Roger knew that the dark portal would inevitably be reopened, because the Burning Legion would not give up. Even if Nazul didn't reopen the dark portal, they would reopen it and send a large army to Azeroth. The Burning Legion was too far away from Azeroth. Traveling through the universe would take at least tens of millions of years. Therefore, Sargeras had been looking for a way to teleport to Azeroth. During the War of the Ancients, he tempted Queen Ashera of the Night Elves to use the power of the Well of Eternity to open a portal. After the failure of the War of the Ancients, the Well of Eternity collapsed, and Azeroth no longer had a powerful energy source to support a portal that could teleport Sargeras. That's why Sargeras pretended to be killed by Egwene and infiltrated Medivae's body, and then manipulated Medivae to contact Gul'dan and open the dark portal. It can be said that the dark portal was the only shortcut for the Burning Legion to invade Azeroth. How could the Burning Legion give up? Roger helped Turalyon plan the defense, waiting for the change to occur. Not long after, Kadger arrived at Netherguard Keep and brought bad news. Alterac has been attacked by Death Knights. Death Knights? Everyone exchanged glances, and then subconsciously looked at Roger. Is it Terran Gore Fiend? Everyone's expression changed drastically. Although they didn't know what the Book of Medivae was, anything related to Medivae was never simple. Kadger explained, the Book of Medivae contains the method to build the dark portal. Alleria asked, isn't there already a dark portal? The orcs only need to reopen it to enter Azeroth. Everyone was also deeply puzzled. Did the orcs want to open another dark portal to enter Azeroth from another place? It's very simple. Roger said, they want to go to another world. Someone raised a question, but wouldn't it take a long time to find a new world? But the orcs no longer have the ability to attack Azeroth, especially Terran Gore Fiend. He is extremely afraid of me. Even if you gave him 10 times the courage, he wouldn't dare to appear in front of me again. Alleria nodded and said, I can attest to that. During the battle in Eversong Woods, Terran Gore Fiend led 2,000 troll death knights, but Roger just jumped in front of him, and he turned around and fled. It was because of his route that we were able to easily defeat the trolls. Everyone had also heard about the battle in Eversong Woods and didn't doubt that Roger was boasting. It's just that the difficulty of finding a new world was obviously greater. There was no need for the orcs to go to such lengths. Roger looked at Kadger. Although he didn't think highly of Kadger, he still had to remind him. Having the method to build the dark portal, you still need a powerful energy source and a device to stabilize the energy to open the dark portal. Terran Gorfiend will definitely focus on these two aspects next. Before Roger could finish speaking, Kadger thought of something. However, before he could act, a magical light appeared in front of him. Kadger reached out and touched the magical light, and Antonidas' image appeared before everyone. Kadger, Terran Gorfiend stole the Eye of Dalaran. Chapter 74. The Eye of Dalaran is a magical artifact used by Dalaran to regulate and channel the magical network. Dalaran was built upon a nexus of the magical network, and the arcane energy emanating from this nexus far exceeded that of any other place. Aside from the High Elves' Sunwell, no place could compare to the arcane energy of the magic network nexus. Of course, this was the belief of the mages who built Dalaran. Later, they discovered many places stronger than Dalaran, but the city was already built, and they couldn't just move it, could they? However, the arcane energy of the magic network nexus was chaotic and disordered, making it difficult for ordinary mages to control its power. Therefore, in order to channel, regulate, and control the energy of the magic network, the mages jointly created the Eye of Dalaran. It was thanks to the Eye of Dalaran's stabilization of arcane energy that Dalaran achieved its current glory. The Eye of Dalaran was precisely the device that Rog had just mentioned Terran Bloodwither needed to stabilize energy. Therefore, upon hearing Antonidas' words, everyone was stunned. They couldn't understand why Terran Bloodwither could infiltrate Dalaran, as Dalaran was not Alterac. Alterac was just an ordinary human kingdom, and due to its geographical location, Alterac's greatest enemies were the beasts in the Alterac Mountains. The cold environment resulted in an extremely sparse population of beasts, so there weren't many guards in Alterac City, they mainly maintained order within the city. But Dalaran was different. Dalaran was a magical city, boasting thousands of mages, and the city was filled with magical devices for detecting invisibility, making infiltration impossible. Moreover, the Eye of Dalaran was an important artifact of Dalaran, certainly kept in a safe place. It was said that the mages had placed a concealing enchantment on the Eye of Dalaran, so even if it were placed right in front of you, you wouldn't be able to detect its existence. Terran Bloodwither has an accomplice. Rog said decisively, with Terran Bloodwither's abilities, there is absolutely no way he could have stolen the Eye of Dalaran. Then, who is the accomplice? Someone asked. Everyone fell silent, unable to fathom the answer. Rog, who knew the answer, also remained silent, contemplating Deathwing's motives. According to the historical plot, Deathwing helped Terran Bloodwither to conduct experiments in Draenor. However, the Red Dragon Queen had not been enslaved, and Deathwing did not have any red dragon eggs, so there was no question of conducting experiments. Rog underestimated Deathwing's shamelessness. After Neltharion fell and became Deathwing, his reproductive ability decreased significantly. As a result, the hatching rate of the dragon eggs laid by his consort, Sinistra, decreased dramatically, making it impossible for him to breed more black dragons. Therefore, he turned his attention to Alexstrasza. The Lifebinder's reproductive ability was extremely vigorous, and all the dragon eggs laid by the Red Dragon Queen could hatch into whelps. If he could modify the red dragon eggs and turn them into his black dragon subordinates, then he would have enough dragons to deal with the other dragon flights. However, this plan was disrupted by Rog before it could be implemented. So, he devised another plan. His daughter, Onyxia, had come of age and was in her reproductive period as a dragon. Therefore, he used magic to accelerate Onyxia's growth, obtaining a batch of dragon eggs. However, the time it would take for these dragon eggs to hatch into whelps and grow into dragons was too long, so he decided to conduct experiments to accelerate the growth of these dragon eggs. History returned to its original course, and Deathwing found the fleeing Terran Bloodwither. Terran Bloodwither was terrified by Rog, but the moment he encountered Deathwing, he was paralyzed by the intense dark aura emanating from Deathwing's body. Only then did he realize that the sword Rog used came from Deathwing. Logically speaking, Terran Bloodwither shouldn't have been able to sense the dark aura of the old gods. However, in the instant he was killed by Rog, his soul touched the aura of the old gods, which was the real reason Terran Bloodwither feared Rog. Deathwing had prepared many words of enticement, but none of them were needed. No matter what Deathwing said, Terran Bloodwither hastily agreed, as long as Deathwing didn't kill him. Under Deathwing's instructions, Terran Bloodwither infiltrated Alterac and found the Book of Medivh that Deathwing had mentioned. The Book of Medivh was what Deathwing had incited Aiden to steal. Originally, he wanted to collect the 3 great artifacts himself. However, now that he had Terran Bloodwither, he didn't need to take action himself and expose his hidden identity among the humans. Deathwing also sent black dragons to help Terran Bloodwither enter Dalaran. The black dragons couldn't find the exact location of the Eye of Dalaran. However, this was not a problem for Terran Bloodwither, as his magic was exactly the counter to the mage's protective magic, allowing him to easily steal the Eye of Dalaran. Next was the last artifact, the Scepter of Sargeras. Having lost 2 artifacts in a row, Rog knew that the time to reopen the dark portal was approaching. Sure enough, a few days later, someone came to report. Garona sneaked into Netherguard Keep, interrupting everyone's discussion. Kadger. Garona was about to speak when she saw Rog next to Kadger. Rog. Kadger grabbed Rog's arm. Garona was controlled by the Shadow Council when she assassinated King Lane. Rog glanced at him, so, she's not guilty then. Kadger opened his mouth, but he couldn't bring himself to say that Garona was not guilty, so he could only grit his teeth and say, at the time, she wasn't acting according to her own will, so even if she's guilty, she doesn't deserve to die. You should say that to King Lane. Rog said coldly. Kadger saw that Garona was about to be strangled to death, so he quickly cast a counterspell on Rog, dispelling Rog's arcane hand. Garona fell to the ground, coughing violently. Rog grabbed Kadger's clothes. Do you want to fight? Kadger quickly said, I just want you to calm down. Humph. Rog pushed Kadger away and looked at Garona coldly. Do you still remember what you once promised me? Garona didn't dare to look Rog in the eyes, lowering her head and saying nothing. Kadger quickly smoothed things over. Garona was sent by me to hunt down the Shadow Council. She must have very important news this time. Everyone looked at each other, obviously surprised that Kadger and Garona had been in contact for a long time. It turned out that after the Battle of Blackrock Mountain, Garona learned about Kadger and, with Kadger's help, broke free from the Shadow Council's control. To atone for her sins, she began hunting down the fleeing members of the Shadow Council. From the Alterac incident, she discovered Terran Bloodwither's whereabouts and then followed him to Dalaran. After Terran Bloodwither stole the Eye of Dalaran, Garona followed him to Manethil Harbor. She discovered that Terran Bloodwither wanted to go to sea, so she informed the human guards of Manethil Harbor, and then learned of Terran Bloodwither's destination. The Tomb of Sargeras. Chapter 75. The Tomb of Sargeras. Everyone exchanged glances, unsure of what this place was or even who Sargeras was. Remember the domain name of the first website. Aurelia's expression changed drastically. How could there be this great demon's tomb in Azeroth? Kadger explained, centuries ago, the guardian Egwin encountered Sargeras in Northrend and killed him, burying him in an ancient elven ruin. Egwin? She could kill Sargeras. Aurelia was astonished. From ancient texts, she knew Sargeras was as strong as a true god. How could Egwin possibly kill him? Kadger said, Egwin was the most powerful of all the guardians of Tirisfal, possessing the combined power of all the mages of the Council of Tirisfal. Even that wouldn't be enough to kill Sargeras. Aurelia said earnestly. Roger waved his hand, stopping their argument. He stared at Garona and asked, what does Terran Gorfiend want to do at the Tomb of Sargeras? Garona glanced at Roger guiltily and then said, Terran Gorfiend went to the Tomb of Sargeras to seize the Scepter of Sargeras. Sargeras used this scepter to create a spatial rift to enter Azeroth. After Egwin killed Sargeras, she placed the scepter in the Tomb of Sargeras. He wants to use the scepter to open a portal back to Draenor. Roger pressed. I'm not sure. Kadger interjected, no matter where he wants to go, he needs teleportation coordinates. Roger said, given Terran Gorfiend's movements, it will be difficult for him to find other teleportation coordinates. The only coordinates he knows are here. Following Roger's gaze, everyone saw the dark portal in the distance. Turalion understood Roger's intention and immediately said, I will have people monitor the dark portal at all times. Kadger said worriedly, if Terran Gorfiend only wants to return to Draenor himself, stealing the Scepter of Sargeras would be enough. Why steal the Book of Medivh and the Eye of Dalaran? Perhaps they also want to return to Azeroth. Or go to other worlds. Garona said, due to the influence of Fel energy, Draenor is no longer suitable for survival. The orcs entered Azeroth to find a new place to live. Now that they have failed, they will inevitably seek new targets. Everyone exchanged glances. If that were the case, it would explain why Terran Gorfine stole the Book of Medivh and the Eye of Dalaran. We can't let them succeed. Kadger said, orcs are inherently cruel and cannot be allowed to harm other worlds. Roger chuckled inwardly, not expecting Kadger to be so saintly. What did the creatures of other worlds have to do with them? However, Roger's goal was the same as Kadger's, so he chimed in, if the orcs regain their strength in other worlds, they will inevitably attack Azeroth again, and they will be even more difficult to deal with then. Hearing this, everyone felt it made sense. Kadger seized the opportunity to say, we should form an army and go to Draenor to completely eliminate the Orcish threat. Turalion agreed, I agree. The Stormwind Keep army belongs to the Kingdom of Stormwind, which is inconvenient in terms of command. Soon, everyone discussed the recruitment method. They announced this matter in the army and allowed soldiers to join this new army voluntarily. To commemorate the Alliance Marshal Lothar, everyone decided to call this army the Sons of Lothar, aiming to continue Lothar's unfinished business. Because they were about to enter a completely new world to fight, many soldiers had concerns about this. Only a small portion of the Stormwind Keep army joined, and the number was not enough to support a cross-world war. So Turalion, as the commander of the alliance, sent official documents to various countries, openly recruiting troops. The entire alliance had a large number of troops. As long as a small portion participated in the Sons of Lothar, the number would be sufficient. Several months later, thousands of Sons of Lothar gathered at Stormwind Keep. In these few months, the commander of the Sons of Lothar was also determined. As the commander of the alliance, Turalion became the supreme commander of the Sons of Lothar. Dalen Proudmoore was the commander of the human army, Kurdran Wildhammer was the commander of the dwarf army, and Alleria Windrunner was the commander of the elven army. Kadger and Roger were advisors to the Sons of Lothar, with Kadger responsible for commanding the mages of Dalaran and Roger responsible for forming a special operations team. B Company's combat power was known throughout the world. If they could form another army like B Company, it would be helpful for the upcoming war in Draenor. Although forming a special operations team again made Roger somewhat distressed, he still took on this task. Firstly, he needed to build his own power, and guarding the dragon soul could not rely on him alone. Secondly, he also needed power to increase his worth. After all, Alleria was an elven noble, and he had to be a match for the Windrunner family. Although Alleria didn't care much, Roger had to be clear in his own mind. Otherwise, their child might be despised by the Windrunner family after birth. That's right, Alleria was already pregnant, and their child would be born in a few months. Turalion sent people to enter the Dark Portal to scout, only to find a barren wasteland behind the Dark Portal. The scouts followed Terran Gorfine's tracks to a huge fortress and found a large number of orcs inside. Time was of the essence, and the orcs could open a new Dark Portal at any time, so the Sons of Lothar had to recapture the stolen artifacts as soon as possible. The moment he crossed the Dark Portal, the whispers in Roger's ears completely disappeared. His guess was correct, the power of the old gods could not penetrate the Dark Portal. From today onwards, he could finally get a good night's sleep. Chapter 76. Although the Sons of Lothar already knew the situation of Draenor from the intelligence reports, they were still surprised by the desolation that met their eyes. Turalion unfolded the map drawn by the scouts and began to deploy the battle plan. Roger did not wait for Turalion's order, but led the Sword of Lothar and Alleria to launch an attack on the orc stronghold in the west. This stronghold was very close to the Dark Portal, and judging from its scale, it should have been an orc supply depot, which was later converted into a watchtower to monitor the Dark Portal. When they saw the Sons of Lothar entering the Dark Portal, the orcs in the stronghold sent people to notify the orcs in the fortress. The remaining orcs launched a resistance on the spot, but they did not know what kind of enemy they were facing. The elves used bows and arrows to contain the orcs from a distance, and the Sword of Lothar launched a charge against the orc attacks. The warriors broke through the gate and stormed into the stronghold. The mages followed closely behind, defeating all the orcs. When Roger stepped into the stronghold, the assassins had already handed the sordid intelligence to Roger, and all the tortured prisoners were lying on the open space in the center of the stronghold. Garona looked at the corpses of these orcs, and looked at Roger with some fear. Obviously she was shocked by Roger's murderous aura. Roger didn't even look at the corpses, looked at the intelligence in his hand, and dropped a sentence, "Dispose of them." The mages began to communicate with the elemental spirits, but found that they could not get any response. They had to give up, and instead mobilized their own mana, using arcane energy to transform fire spells, burning the corpses of the orc prisoners. After reading the intelligence, Roger handed the intelligence to Garona. "Give it to Turalion, and tell him that I will go to occupy that garrison first, and let him come later." Garona quickly took the intelligence. She couldn't wait to leave Roger's side. Although Roger promised to spare her life, Garona could still feel the killing intent in Roger's eyes. She is a legendary assassin with super strength, she should not be afraid of Roger. But when Roger attacked her, she was subdued by Roger without any resistance, and she couldn't break free at all. Standing at the highest point of the watchtower, Roger used farsight to observe the surroundings, and verified the map in the game and the map drawn by the scouts. Soon, he determined the location of the stronghold, which was in the middle of the dark portal and the Legion front, and he could see the sea in the north and south directions, and to the west was the predecessor of the Legion front, a continuous mountain range. Through the mountain road, he saw a majestic fortress from a distance, which was the base built by the orcs to invade Azeroth, which was later Hellfire Citadel. According to the scouts' intelligence, Hellfire Citadel is surrounded by a moat flowing with fell energy, which flows down from the high mountains in the north. Roger knew that the mountain was the throne of Kil'jaeden, where Gul'dan tricked the orcs into drinking the blood of demons. On the scout map, there is a set of dry rivers in the west of the mountain range, and the hills surrounded by the rivers are very suitable as a garrison. That is the location of Honor Hold later. Although the dry riverbed cannot get water, it is a natural protective belt. The drop caused by the terrain makes it impossible for the orcs to attack directly, and they can only bypass the river from the south. But when they bypass the river, the defenders can find the traces of the orcs and launch a defense. The Dragonhawk riders scouted for Roger and Alleria, and the Sword of Lothar and the elves marched into the mountains at a rapid pace. Because it was corroded by fell energy, most of the trees on the mountain range had died, leaving only dry trunks. The exposed rocks were red, and Roger tried to smash a large rock, but the fell energy only penetrated the surface, and the stone inside was intact, and the color was still white. With these wood and stones, establishing Honor Hold will save a lot of trouble. The Dragonhawk riders pointed out the orc ambush to Roger, and under Roger's command, the Sword of Lothar quickly cleared the orc ambushers on the mountain. The next day, the Sword of Lothar occupied the hill of Honor Hold and established a proposed camp, waiting for the arrival of the large army. In less than 2 days, Turalion led the large army to arrive. According to the scheduled plan, they began to build Honor Hold on one side, and scouted Hellfire Citadel on the other. Under the reconnaissance of the Griffin Riders and Dragonhawk Riders, only Hellfire Citadel had orcs left in the entire Hellfire Peninsula. And Kadger has confirmed that the 3 artifacts are in Hellfire Citadel through tracking spells. Moreover, he discovered the 4th artifact in Hellfire Citadel, which was the artifact used by Terran Gorfine to open the Dark Portal. If we take back the artifact now, do we not need to continue building Honor Hold? Dalen Proudmoore suggested. We should be cautious. Turalion always felt that things were not that simple. For some reason, the fell energy around Hellfire Citadel made him feel very bad. Kadger looked at Roger. "I didn't feel any threat in the fortress." Roger knew Kadger's intention. He wanted himself to also detect whether there were any overly powerful existences in the fortress. Roger is not good at detection spells, but he is very good at detecting dragons. If there is any powerful existence in Hellfire now, it is the Black Dragon. He took out the Demon Bane sword and began to cast a tracking spell. The next second, the Demon Bane sword vibrated, and Roger's face changed drastically. Deathwing. Turalion and others didn't know why. What Deathwing? That is a powerful black dragon, he was once one of the 5 aspect dragons. Kadger explained, and then asked Roger, "Are you sure Deathwing is in the fortress? Even if he turns to ashes, I will recognize him." Roger's face was a little distorted. "It was because of him that I failed to save Lord Lothar. Enemies are extremely jealous when they meet. If it weren't for Deathwing, Lothar wouldn't have died, and John wouldn't have died either." Killing intent was revealed into Ralion's eyes. "Is there any way to kill Deathwing?" Alleria worriedly held Roger's hand. Roger's expression softened. He sighed faintly. "Deathwing's power is beyond your imagination. Even if all of us add up, we are not his opponents. Unless we have powerful helpers, otherwise we are not Deathwing's opponents at all." Everyone frowned. They knew that Roger was very confident in his own strength, and the existence that could make Roger feel helpless was definitely not something they could deal with. But just watching Deathwing swaggering around without punishing him? Everyone admitted that they couldn't do it. Turalion was afraid that someone would get hot-headed and do something that would be detrimental to the alliance, and immediately ordered, "Do not act rashly before honor hold is built." Chapter 77. The power of Deathwing silenced the entire council hall, everyone pondering how to solve the Black Dragon's threat. Curdalin Wildhammer, unable to bear the oppressive atmosphere, said angrily, "At worst, I'll take the Griffin Riders and hold back the Black Dragon, and you can take the opportunity to attack the fortress." Although everyone knew he was just venting, it did provide a direction for everyone. Roger remembered that in the historical plot, the Griffin Riders held back the Black Dragon, allowing the Allied forces to break through Hellfire Peninsula. The current situation is different from the historical plot in that the Griffin Riders in the historical plot had fought the Red Dragon countless times and had rich experience in fighting dragons, while the Griffin Riders in the current situation are a bunch of newbies. If they don't have experience, then help them accumulate experience. Roger took out the arcane essence of the Blue Dragon. This is the arcane essence of a Blue Dragon, and the soul of the Blue Dragon Arcanagos is deposited inside. Let Arcanagos accompany the aerial knights in training, not seeking to kill the enemy. As long as they can entangle the Black Dragon, we will have a chance to break through the fortress. As for Deathwing, I'll think of a way to hold him back. The people looked at each other, and there was no other good plan. Turalion was silent for a moment. That's the only way. Arcanagos was summoned by Roger, and just wanted to stretch his wings. "Ah! I'm suffocating. Rogers, if you don't summon me for such a long time, I'm going back to the Dragon Blight Temple." Then he saw a group of people staring at him with wide eyes, making him a little confused. What's the situation? The elemental spirits have been silent, and the evil energy is constantly expanding. This world is gradually dying. Take me back quickly, I can't stay in such a world, it will kill me. Roger input a trace of arcane energy into the arcane essence. "Arcanagos, with me here, you will never die." Feeling the divinity in the arcane energy, Arcanagos looked at Roger in astonishment. "You?" Roger nodded. "That's right, just like you think. But now is not the time to talk about this. I need you to help me train the aerial knights, and we'll talk about the rest after we deal with Deathwing." Deathwing. Speaking of Deathwing, Arcanagos began to gnash his teeth. The Blue Dragon's hatred for Deathwing is deeply rooted. "Okay, let's deal with Deathwing first. After we kill Deathwing, we need to have a good talk." "Okay." The people didn't know what Roger and the Blue Dragon were talking about, but seeing that they had reached an agreement, they immediately breathed a sigh of relief. In everyone's impression, dragons are very powerful beings. Arcanagos' approval of this plan means that this plan is feasible. Roger handed the arcane essence to Kadger to use. He now has more important tasks. Locking himself in a secret room, Roger set up a magic forbidden barrier in the secret room, and then couldn't wait to take out the dragon's soul. He was going to try to absorb another divinity, because the elemental spirits were silent, and arcane magic was weakened in Draenor. If it were normal, continuing to absorb arcane divinity could be regarded as accumulating strength, but now in this critical moment, Roger must choose the divinity absorption that increases his strength the most. Time is difficult to understand and difficult to use. Absorbing the divinity of time takes a long time to decipher its mysteries, so Roger gave up. The divinity of dreams also doesn't work in Draenor. Draenor doesn't have the Emerald Dream, and the effect will inevitably be greatly reduced. Then, there is only one choice left, the divinity of life. Soon, Roger found a trace of divinity rich in life in the dragon's soul, and then slowly absorbed it. Absorbing the divinity of life, your body is strengthened. Gained the talent Titan's Grip. The Unbound Swordsman's level increased by 5 levels, and 5 extra skill points. The Arcane Master gained the skill Breath of Life. Titan's Grip, your body has the power of a titan, and you can use any weapon with one hand. Breath of Life, you can manipulate the spirits of life and shape the life you want according to your wishes. Roger opened his eyes and felt the power of Titan's Grip. In the game, warriors with Titan's Grip can dual-wield two-handed swords, and their attack power is exceptionally strong. The Titan's Grip in reality is even more powerful than in the game. Not to mention two-handed swords, Roger felt that he could use even the totem pole used by the Tauren with one hand. In addition to dual-wielding weapons, Titan's Grip also greatly strengthens the body. Roger felt that as long as he was willing, he could completely punch through this stone-built secret room. If all the divinity of life is absorbed, wouldn't he be able to punch through the entire planet? Roger didn't understand the skill Breath of Life, it seems that he needs to experiment. The Unbound Swordsman's 10 skill points 5 points were used to upgrade Windwalk. The Grandmaster level Windwalk is more powerful and more difficult to defend against. Roger was sure that if he fought Darkon Drathir again, he could defeat Drathir head-on. 3 skill points upgraded Bladestorm to the Master level, and its power increased again. 2 skill points upgraded Parry to the Expert level. The previous 5 achievement points were used to strengthen Breath of Life. Absorption speed, conversion efficiency, and shaping ability have all been strengthened by 10%. After absorbing the Divinity of Life, Roger's strength has once again improved to a higher level. Walking out of the secret room, Roger participated in the training of the Aerial Knights. To ensure that Deathwing takes action, Roger will act with the Aerial Knights. In the following days, the Buildings of Honor hold continued to be improved. Turalion was also formulating a strategy to attack Hellfire Citadel, and then simulated the results many times. After ensuring that everything was foolproof, Turalion convened a military meeting again and conveyed the order to all the generals. Late at night, Dethrohan led the cavalry out first. Before dawn, they detoured to the rear of Hellfire Citadel. When the sun was about to rise, Dethrohan drew his sword and ordered loudly, "Light the fire bombs and attract all the orcs' attention." The knights immediately lit the torches and ran towards Hellfire Citadel, shouting as they ran. Sure enough, the orcs in Hellfire Citadel were attracted. Kargath Bladefist, who was ordered to guard Hellfire Citadel, came to the western city wall with his men. The thing he had been worried about finally happened. However, what could he do? Attack, repel the humans. The orcs on the city wall used catapults to attack the cavalry, but they were all dodged by the agile cavalry. Apart from wasting stones, there was no gain. Chapter 78. Soon, Kargath realized something was wrong. Besides the cavalry, the humans hadn't sent any other troops. But how could cavalry alone break through the solid Hellfire Citadel? Something was wrong. Remember the first website domain name. Boom! With an explosion, the east gate opened wide. Turalion led his army into Hellfire Citadel, quickly occupying the city walls and defensive works within the fortress. The sudden turn of events stunned Kargath. The enemy was aggressive and extremely skilled in battle. Terran Gorfiend had deceived him. Kargath's eyes darted around, and his loyal subordinates disappeared into a nearby alley. Kargath, born a slave, was different from other orcs. He wouldn't risk his life for no reason. If there was even a glimmer of hope for survival, he would seize it. It was this personality that led him to believe the ogre's lies. It was also this personality that led him to join Gul'dan's Shadow Council, becoming the only non-warlock core member. Now, seeing that victory was hopeless, he immediately chose to protect himself. The orcs, having lost their leader, quickly fell into chaos and were unable to resist the Alliance's attack. Just then, dragon roars echoed in the sky. Several black dragons flew out from the clouds and attacked the Alliance forces attacking the fortress. "All right lads, it's our turn!" Kurdran shouted, leaping up on his griffin and charging towards the black dragons. The black dragons, seeing the griffins approaching, immediately shifted their attack targets and breathed dragon fire at the griffins. However, the griffins nimbly changed direction, easily dodging the dragon fire and circling around to the black dragon's sides. The dwarves threw warmers imbued with the power of lightning at the black dragons' heads, causing them to cry out in pain. These newly born black dragon whelps didn't have much intelligence. After being injured by the dwarves, they chased after them, ignoring Deathwing's orders. Roger, riding his Amini Warhawk, had been watching the battlefield from a distance, but hadn't seen any sign of Deathwing after waiting for a long time. Seeing that Turalion was about to control Hellfire Citadel, Roger had no choice but to take out the demon soul, but there was no reaction. Deathwing was clearly not in Hellfire Citadel. Could he have already gone to Gorgrond? Roger turned his gaze to the black dragon whelps, sensing the aura of the old gods on them. Since Deathwing wasn't here, he would capture a few black dragon whelps as experimental subjects to study what the old gods' corruption really was. No sooner said than done, Roger controlled the Amini Warhawk and soared into the sky. A black dragon whelp saw Roger charging towards it and immediately spewed a mouthful of dragon fire at him. Roger didn't dodge, using Arcane Hand to deflect the dragon fire and rushing in front of the black dragon whelp. The black dragon whelp didn't expect such a powerful enemy and was immediately stunned. Roger pulled the reins and arrived above the black dragon whelp. He dismissed the Amini Warhawk and jumped onto the black dragon whelp's back. Arcane Hand forcefully pressed down on the black dragon whelp's neck. The black dragon whelp struggled a few times, but suffocation quickly deprived it of its ability to move, and it fell from the sky. Roger took out a magical rope made by elves, put it around the black dragon whelp's neck, and held the demon soul against its scales. "Submit to me, or I'll kill you." Perhaps the threat of death worked, or perhaps the black dragon whelp sensed Deathwing's aura on the demon soul. It obediently submitted to Roger, allowing the magical rope to take effect on its body. Before the black dragon whelp landed, the magical rope merged with it. Then, Roger pulled the magical rope, and the black dragon whelp spread its wings and soared into the sky, charging towards the other black dragon whelps. The other black dragon whelps were surprised by their companion's betrayal and even more enraged by Roger's enslavement of the black dragon. They abandoned the griffin riders and charged towards Roger, wanting to kill this mortal who dared to desecrate the black dragon. But before they could get close to Roger, they were met with a large barrage of arcane missiles. The arcane barrage obscured their vision, and by the time they broke through the magical mist, a giant arcane hand was attacking them. One black dragon whelp was knocked dizzy and fell directly into the fortress, startling the humans and orcs who were fighting. The remaining black dragon whelps were also quickly knocked away. Seeing that Roger had easily defeated them, they were immediately filled with fear and turned to flee. Kurdran flew over and said to Roger in surprise, "Rogers, you're amazing. You actually caught a black dragon to use as a mount." Roger said with a faint smile, "It's just a whelp." Although Roger's words were humble, Kurdran could still hear a strong sense of Versailles in his tone. Roger controlled the black dragon whelp to land, stopping the soldiers who were attacking it. "Stop, find some chains and tie him up." The black dragon whelp was already covered in wounds and became angry again when it saw Roger. It raised its head and was about to spew dragon fire at Roger, but Roger didn't give it a chance. Arcane hand choked its neck, forcing the dragon fire back into its stomach. Cough cough cough. The black dragon whelp coughed, trembling all over, spewing out a lot of flames and smoke as it opened and closed its mouth. Roger said coldly, "You better listen obediently, or I don't mind tasting black dragon meat." The black dragon whelp dared not make any more moves. It had already recognized the gap between itself and Roger. If Roger wanted to, he could kill it right now. It hadn't been in this world for long and didn't want to die so soon. The soldiers found iron chains, and the black dragon whelp obediently allowed them to chain it up. Kadger and Turalion came over. "I just entered the fortress to search for the artifact and engaged in a battle with an ogre mage. That ogre mage told me that the unknown artifact is called the Skull of Gul'dan, made from Gul'dan's skull. Terran Gorfin stole it from the demons when he went to the tomb of Sargeras to steal the scepter of Sargeras. After they returned to the fortress, Terran Gorfin gave the Skull of Gul'dan to the orc who might be Deathwing's incarnation, and then took the other 3 artifacts to Shadow Moon Valley to find an orc shaman named Nazul. Terran Gorfin wants to lead the orcs to conquer another world, seeking a new home for the orcs while satisfying his own ambition to rule the world." Roger curled his lips in disdain. Terran Gorfin wants to rule the world. What a joke! Turalion said, "In any case, we must retrieve these 4 artifacts. I suggest that we split up into 2 groups. You take people to chase Terran Gorfin and must stop them from opening a new portal. Kadger and I will chase Deathwing and try to retrieve the Skull of Gul'dan as much as possible." Chapter 79. The 3 of them discussed how to divide the troops and who would stay behind to garrison the area. After reorganizing the army, the main force set off westward, crossing the mountains and arriving at a vast swamp. According to intelligence from captured orcs, this swamp was called Zungar Marsh, which used to be a sea, but was later eroded by fell energy, causing the seawater to recede and eventually form a swamp. In the eastern part of the swamp, there were 2 roads leading north and south, and the 2 sides split up here. Roger, Alyria, and Athrohan led their troops south, entering to later to pursue Talon Blood Moon. Turalion, Kadger, and Kurdran went north into Gorgron to hunt down Deathwing. After the division, Roger personally led the Dragonhawk riders to scout along the road. Finally, 3 days later, they discovered the trail of Talon Blood Moon in a Drania town called Tuarim. Talon Blood Moon was only accompanied by a few hundred orcs. When Roger saw this, he directly rode the black dragon whelp to attack Talon Blood Moon's forces. The whelp swooped down, and dragon breath engulfed the orcs from above. Roger continuously cast arcane missiles, bombarding the orcs. The Dragonhawk riders also followed Roger's attack, their arrows accurately hitting the orcs' vital spots. For a time, the orcs were stunned and only focused on escaping, completely forgetting how to fight back. Of course, they had no way to fight back. Apart from the black dragon whelp being relatively close to them, the Dragonhawk riders were completely out of their attack range. And the only spellcaster among the orcs, Talon Bloodmoon, drove his death charger away at the first moment the black dragon whelp flew down. This Death Knight, who was as powerful as a god in the eyes of the orcs, didn't even have the courage to face Roger. Roger led the Dragonhawk riders to cut off the road leading to Shadowmoon Valley, and the orcs could only avoid the east and run west. Talon Bloodmoon gathered about 100 or so defeated soldiers and entered an area called the Bone Wastes, entering an underground mausoleum. According to the intelligence provided by the orc prisoners, this underground mausoleum was called Ochine Down, a cemetery highly valued by the Drania. When the orcs attacked the cemetery that year, they originally wanted to summon demons, but instead summoned a powerful elemental lord from another world, whose powerful sonic attacks destroyed the land within 100 miles of Ochine Down, forming the current Bone Wastes. Roger's Dragonhawk riders built a camp on the edge of the Bone Wastes and notified the main force to come over, blocking any roads leading to Shadowmoon Valley. Then, he went to Ochine Down alone. When the black dragon whelp landed, he was not greeted by orcs, but by a group of races he had never seen before. But Roger knew that they were Drania. The arrival of the orcs disturbed them, and when they came out to scout, they happened to discover Roger. "Outsider, state your purpose." "I'm here to find the orcs who entered the tomb." Roger said, neither humble nor arrogant, "If you help me find those orcs, I will also give you some help." "You can't help us with anything, outsider." Adrania said loudly, "Leave here, or we will be rude to you." Roger smiled disdainfully. These Drania wouldn't cooperate without showing some strength. Casting a spell, he retracted the black dragon whelp into the magic rain space, and then took out the demon bane sword and shield. "You'd better not hinder me, otherwise, I don't mind treating you as accomplices of the orcs." The Drania were obviously angered by Roger's boastful words, and they immediately condensed shadow magic, giving Roger a final warning, "Outsider, leave immediately." Roger completely ignored their warning and continued to walk towards the tomb passage. "Death to those who trespass in Ochine Down." The Drania cast spells at Roger, who casually blocked them with the demon bane shield, deflecting the shadow magic. Just as Roger was about to enter the underground passage, several Arako appeared from the shadows. "Respected guest, I bring greetings from Anzu, the Raven God." Roger raised his eyebrows. 2 of the 4 Ochine Down instances had appeared. Were the other 2 going to join in the fun too? "By order of Rukmar, the Talon King, we will take you to find the orcs." The Arako paused for a moment, and then said, "However, the Talon King hopes that you can help us return to our home, Spires of Arak." Roger chuckled, "You have good intentions." The Arako looked at Roger nervously when he heard this. But Roger didn't bargain. "As long as you can help me find the orcs, I, personally representing humanity, will form an alliance with you, Arako. Helping allies return home is what we should do. However, this matter should be discussed in the long term. We will discuss this matter after we have completely defeated the orcs." The Arako nodded quickly, "That's for sure. We hate the orcs very much. If it weren't for their deception, we would have returned to our homeland by now. Please come with me, respected guest." "Wait." Adrania stopped them. He got up and ran to Roger. "If we help you find the orcs, can you help us retake Shatrath?" "That depends on how much help you can give me." The Drania said seriously, "If you can help us retake Shatrath and ensure that it will no longer be attacked by orcs and demons, I will immediately take you to find the orcs, and you don't need to go through the underground passage." "Nonsense." The Arako rebuked the Drania, "How can you find the orcs without entering the underground mausoleum?" "Respected guest, don't listen to his nonsense. Ochine Down was built by us Drania. We know any passage in Ochine Down very well and can find their exits." Roger raised his hand to stop the 2 from arguing. "I don't care how much effort you put in, as long as I can find Talon Bloodmoon, I can agree to your conditions." The Arako immediately looked at the Drania. He also knew that the Arako really didn't know Ochine Down as well as the Drania. But the Drania didn't speak. He looked at Roger. "You need to retake Shatrath first, then I can tell you where the exit of the tunnel is." Roger stared at the Drania, but the Drania was not afraid. The Arako was shocked by Roger's pressure and didn't dare to say a word, for fear that Roger would make him a scapegoat. Roger thought for a while, and then said, "I will help you retake Shatrath, but if you dare to lie to me, I will kill all the Drania." The Drania trembled, obviously frightened by Roger's murderous aura. But even so, he didn't change his conditions. Obviously, he thought that retaking Shatrath was more important than his personal life or even the lives of the entire clan. Chapter 80. With the agreement reached, Roger said to the Drania, "Send someone to act as my guide. I will begin marching towards Shatrath tomorrow. Once I arrive, I will immediately launch an attack. When I reclaim Shatrath, I expect you to be there as well and fulfill your promise to me in person." The Drania discussed it and sent a priest to act as a guide. The others quickly disappeared into the tunnels of Down. Only then did the Araco inquire, "Honorable guest, I wonder if your promise to us still stands." Roger said, "Of course, but I need you to make a contribution as well. Track those orcs and tell me their whereabouts." The Araco nodded quickly, happy that Roger didn't completely trust the Drania. "As you wish." The Araco left happily, while the Drania priest who was left behind looked at Roger with some dissatisfaction. Roger ignored him and tossed the ancient Agil artifact to the priest. "I think you should know how to use it. Although spellcasters have different ways of casting spells, the use of magical items is still universal." The Drania priest summoned an Amini Warhawk and, after mounting it, followed behind the black dragon whelp, leaving Down. Roger specifically returned to the Dragonhawk Riders' encampment to have them monitor Down and the road leading to Shadowmoon Valley, before taking the Drania priest back to Zungar Marsh the way he came. Just past Turem, they saw the main force led by Dallas. The sight of thousands of human soldiers and hundreds of high elf troops brightened the Drania priest's eyes, but then he frowned. "Shatrath is still occupied by thousands of orcs and ogres. These soldiers of yours will never be able to reclaim Shatrath. You don't need to worry about reclaiming Shatrath. All you need to do is lead the way for us," Roger said indifferently, then landed the black dragon whelp in front of the main force. The allied forces stopped, and soon Dallas and Illyria arrived. Roger explained the agreement he had reached with the Drania and the Araco. Dallas frowned and said, "Reclaiming Shatrath is not a problem, but will this affect the pursuit of Talon Bloodweaver?" "It doesn't matter. It will take Talon Bloodweaver at least 4 or 5 days to escape to Shadowmoon Valley, which is enough time for us to reclaim Shatrath," Roger said. "The situation in Draenor is complicated. We are, after all, outsiders. With the help of these natives, it will be much easier to deal with the orcs." Dallas waited and agreed with Roger's idea. "All right. In that case, we will head to Shatrath immediately and take it down as soon as possible." Although the number of allied forces had lost its advantage after splitting up, Dallas was not worried about failing to capture Shatrath. With Roger, a powerful hero, the Sword of Lothar, a powerful army, and hundreds of elven rangers, dealing with an equal number of orcs was not a problem at all. Illyria had no objection to Roger's decision. She only asked about the condition of the Dragonhawk Riders. The allied forces turned around and spent 3 days reaching the outskirts of Shatrath city. What came into view was a ruin, but the scale of the ruins still showed how magnificent the city was before. Many people compared it to the ruins of Stormwind City. Shatrath's area was at least 4 or 5 times that of Stormwind, and Shatrath had multi-story buildings with many towers in the city, making the actual usable area even larger. However, what puzzled everyone was that there didn't seem to be many orcs in the ruins of Shatrath. Roger rode the black dragon whelp into the sky and used Farsight to observe the orcs inside, only to find that there weren't even 1,000 of them. Instead, there were a large number of ogres inside, as many as 1,000. Roger thought for a moment. The Horde's invasion of Azeroth would inevitably draw a large number of orcs. Shatrath was now a ruin, not only without resources but also without strategic value, not worth guarding with too many orcs. And Shatrath was built on the ogres' ancient capital, Goria, so it was normal for ogres to like to occupy it. Sure enough, Roger discovered that many ogres were digging for something in the ruins. It was clear that these ogres wanted to find some ancient artifacts of the Goria Empire. The orcs and ogres in the city had not noticed the arrival of the allied forces. This was a very good opportunity to attack. So Roger sent a signal to the allied forces in the air, then rode the black dragon whelp down. Arcane missiles rained down on the orcs and ogres around the city walls. The orcs and ogres were caught off guard and were immediately thrown into chaos. The allied forces took the opportunity to cross the broken city walls and launched an attack on the orcs and ogres in the city. The orcs and ogres wanted to stop the counterattack, but they were quickly interrupted by the rangers' arrows. Some ogre mages wanted to cast spells to fight back, but just as they were gathering arcane energy, the black dragon whelp descended from the sky and breathed dragon breath on them. The ogre mages quickly cast protective spells, but a black sword shot out, easily piercing the protective spells. Dragon breath followed, burning the ogre mages to ashes. Before Goria was established, this was once a city of Araco civilization. After the Araco Civil War, the city was turned into ruins, and the Apex's crystals that remained here were buried underground. The Araco once taught the ogres arcane arts, and in exchange, the ogres needed to hand over the Apex's crystals they found. However, the ogre leader Grandslayer Gog violated the agreement and used the knowledge learned from the Apex's crystals to establish the Goria Empire. Even so, the ogres still did not get all the Apex's crystals, and even now they can still dig up a large number of crystals. Roger didn't know what the knowledge inside the Apex's crystals was like, but the knowledge that could support a powerful empire should not be bad. The battle was still going on, and Roger had no time to check these crystals. After putting away the things, Roger jumped onto the black dragon whelp and soared into the sky again. With Roger's aerial support, the Allied forces quickly occupied the entire Shatrath city. When the army was cleaning up the battlefield, an army composed of Drania came from the south. The Drania did not directly enter Shatrath city, but sent the few Drania who had reached an agreement with Roger. When they saw the orc and ogre corpses all over the ground, they were all surprised and opened their mouths wide. Chapter 81. I have fulfilled my promise. Roger looked at the few Drania. Now, you should tell me the exit of the tunnel, right? The Drania nodded. The exit of the tunnel is in a cave in Shadowmoon Valley, not far from Shadowmoon Village. Upon hearing this, Roger immediately glared at the Drania. If we can't catch up with Terran Gorefiend, do you know what price you'll pay? The Drania quickly said, please rest assured, the tunnels of Auchinedown have collapsed in many places due to the great explosion. Terran Gorefiend won't be able to get out of the tunnel in half a month. I hope so. Roger's anger remained unabated, because he couldn't afford to gamble. Dallas said, I'm still worried that Terran Gorefiend will open a new dark portal. Let's get to Shadowmoon Village as soon as possible. Alleria nodded. She also had no good feelings towards the Drania who had delayed things. Please wait. The Drania said, Archbishop Murad is just outside the city. He has something he wants to discuss with you. Dallas said disdainfully, since he's already here, why doesn't he just come into the city? The Drania explained, everyone, Archbishop Murad has an important task, we won't let him take risks. Roger didn't want to listen to the Drania's nonsense, we will set off in 2 hours. If Murad wants to say anything to us, he should enter the city as soon as possible. Then, ignoring the Drania, he said to Dallas, reorganize the army, we will set off on time. Dallas nodded, glanced at the Drania, and turned to leave. The Drania looked at each other, but they had no choice but to notify Archbishop Murad. Murad didn't show any expression after hearing their report. He directly led the army into the city, but his army was a bit small, with only a little over 100 people. They vigilantly looked at the humans and elves all over the city, fearing that these strangers would suddenly attack them. Murad ascended the only high tower in Shatrath and walked up to Roger and Alleria. May the Nara bless you. Alleria asked curiously, you don't seem to use the holy light. I study shadow magic, but that doesn't affect my faith in the Naru. Murad explained, then looked at Roger. Thank you for helping the Drania reclaim Shatrath. May I ask how to address you? Roger's Kiskern. Roger introduced himself, then introduced Alleria. This is my wife, Alleria Windrunner. Mr. Kiskern. Murad explained his purpose, although you helped us reclaim Shatrath, you have also seen that with our strength, we cannot defend it at all. Therefore, we still need your help. Roger shook his head, Murad, although I really want to help you, we have more important things to do. I understand. Murad said, but I have a better suggestion that can help you find Terran Gorefiend, and even help you completely eliminate the threat of the orcs. In Shadowmoon Valley, there are still some remaining Drania who are not only full of hatred for the orcs, but also know the geographical environment of Shadowmoon Valley well. I will send someone to contact them and let them help you attack the orcs. Roger asked, what do we need to pay? I hope we can formally form an alliance, and then you leave a sufficient number of troops to help us defend Shatrath. Alleria frowned slightly, but our army is also insufficient. She didn't object to forming an alliance with the Drania, after all, the Drania didn't seem bad, even if they used shadow energy. Roger pondered for a moment, then said to Alleria, you can stay in Shatrath and take care of yourself and the baby. I will handle the matter of chasing Terran Gorefiend properly. After all, Alleria was pregnant, and it was really inconvenient to march continuously. He didn't want his first child to die before it was born. Alyria touched her belly, she was indeed a little overwhelmed. Roger looked at Murad, let's talk about the specific matters of the alliance. Murad smiled happily. As long as he could defend Shatrath, he could notify all the Drania in refuge to come back and rebuild Shatrath city. Roger said in his heart, you are happy too early. The reason why he wanted to form an alliance with the Drania was to get something from the Drania, such as the resonance crystals made by the Drania, which are very good arcane energy storage devices. If he could obtain the forging technology of the resonance crystals, Roger could cultivate a large number of mages in Draenor. There are also the Naru and the spaceship. Obtaining the Naru can cultivate a large number of paladins, and obtaining the spaceship can have a star war with the Twisting Nether and the Burning Legion. It can be said that the Drania have many good things. Getting a small part of them can create a powerful army. And now, Roger has another thing he wants to get from the Drania, the Apex's crystal. After an hour of negotiations, Roger won technology sharing, knowledge sharing, spell sharing, and a territory on the tower as a garrison for the allied forces, and obtained all ownership of the Apex's crystals produced in Shatrath. Roger left a team of Swords of Lothar to protect Alyria, and ordered people to collect Apex's crystals. Dallas also had the adjutant lead 300 people to stay in Shatrath to help the Swords of Lothar excavate Apex's crystals. Then, Roger and Dallas took the liaison personnel sent by the Drania to Shadowmoon Valley, and led the army to Shadowmoon Valley. When passing through to Urim, Roger called on the Dragonhawk riders and arrived near Shadowmoon Village. Roger sent people to monitor Shadowmoon Village on one side, while waiting at the tunnel exit mentioned by the Drania. As a result, what they waited for was not Terran Gorfiend, but the Araco liaison personnel. Roger handed over most of the troops to Dallas and asked him to contact the Drania. He himself took the Dragonhawk riders straight to the Black Temple. He had to stop them before Nazul opened the portal. Chapter 82. The Hand of Gul'dan. A mountain range Gul'dan used fell energy to wrench from the earth, flowed with fell energy everywhere. At the foot of the mountain, Terran Gorfiend coerced the Shadowmoon orcs to move quickly. In the sky behind them, a black dot was rapidly approaching. Terran Gorfiend was extremely annoyed. Why was Rogers so persistent? He had already given up Azeroth, so why was he still chasing after him? Even though he was still very afraid of Rogers, Terran Gorfiend, driven to the brink, decided to take a gamble. He handed his phylactery to a warlock loyal to him, you go first, I'll hold him back. As he spoke, he steered his death charger towards the mountainside of the Hand of Gul'dan, where there was a huge fell pool. He pointed his staff into the fell pool, and the fell energy began to flow. The fell energy of the entire Hand of Gul'dan was gathering towards the fell pool, and then, following the staff, it surrounded him. Endless fell energy formed a huge shield, protecting Terran Gorfiend. Feeling the powerful energy of the fell, Terran Gorfiend couldn't help but feel more confident and was no longer afraid. He had already seen Deathwing and knew that the aura on Rogers that frightened him came from Deathwing. When he was in Tuarim, the reason he ran as soon as he saw Rogers, besides the subconscious fear, was to avoid being entangled by Rogers. After all, opening the new dark portal was more important. Leaving Draenor a day earlier would mean getting rid of the Alliance's pursuit a day earlier. Terran Gorfiend sneered as he watched Rogers fly straight towards him. Did he think he was the same Terran Gorfiend as before? Things were different now. Ah! Terran Gorfiend roared, and a huge fell arrow shot towards Rogers, its scale resembling a fell meteor from a doom guard. The black dragon whelp struggled in fear, sensing danger from the huge fell arrow. Don't be afraid! Rogers shouted softly, took out a red dragon sword enchanted with anti-magic runes, and threw it at the fell arrow. No matter how huge the fell arrow was, it could not escape the category of magic. The red dragon sword crashed into the fell arrow, and the anti-magic runes immediately shattered the fell energy, exploding in the sky like brilliant green fireworks. The red dragon sword was also corroded by the fell energy, falling to the ground in ruins and breaking into two pieces. Terran Gorfiend sneered. Although he didn't know what secrets the sword Rogers threw out had, how many such swords could Rogers have? Thinking of this, Terran Gorfiend continued to cast fell arrows at Rogers. Continuous fell arrows formed a barrage, sealing off Rogers's space to dodge. As the fell energy continued to flow through Terran Gorfiend's body, the bones on Terran Gorfiend's body began to deform, and countless bone spurs grew out. Before long, the fell energy had corroded Terran Gorfiend into a demon made of bones. Feeling the power of his body, Terran Gorfiend couldn't help but shout, "Die! Rogers! It seems he can only outsmart him." Rogers retracted the black dragon whelp into the magic reins and borrowed strength to jump up before the black dragon whelp disappeared. When he reached the highest point, he instantly blinked to a higher position, connected with levitate, activated flame body, and used flames to quickly propel his body upwards, barely dodging the attack range of the fell barrage. Under the cover of the fell barrage, Rogers flew forward for a distance and then charged towards Terran Gorfiend. When the fell barrage submerged Rogers, Terran Gorfiend thought that Rogers had been killed. Just as he was about to celebrate, a flaming meteor appeared in the sky, and Terran Gorfiend was immediately startled. Damn it, how did he dodge it? Terran Gorfiend had no time to think, fully operating the fell energy and releasing it towards Rogers along the staff. Buzz! The fell energy rapidly formed a beam of light, hitting Rogers and sending him flying. Rogers stopped in the air, using arcane energy to shake off the fell energy on his body. He didn't expect Terran Gorfiend to be able to cast Manarotha's fell cannon. If he hadn't activated the mana shield, which had arcane divinity blessing, he would have been killed by this cannon. Even so, Rogers was not lightly injured. However, under the legendary resilience recovery, he was fine in a short while. Terran Gorfiend was also a little surprised by the power of his attack. Although he didn't kill Rogers in one go, how many more attacks could Rogers withstand? He laughed wildly and cast the fell cannon again. The fell energy on the hand of Gul'dan was his ammunition depot. As long as the fell energy here didn't dry up, he could release the fell cannon infinitely. Rogers kept dodging in the sky with blink and levitate connecting with each other, easily dodging the bombardment of the fell cannon. However, he also had no chance to approach Terran Gorfiend and could only stalemate with Terran Gorfiend. This kind of energy storage attack method made Rogers very disgusted. It didn't have any technical content at all and was simply a blasphemy of the term magic. But it must be said that this attack method was really simple and direct. And on the battlefield, the most effective attack method was the simple and direct one. Under the observation of Farsight, the Shadow Moon Orcs had already entered the Black Temple. Rogers was a little anxious. If Nazul opened the Dark Portal, the Lich King would be born. Thinking of this, Rogers took out the Dragon Soul. Since Terran Gorfiend wanted to solve the battle with a simple and direct attack, let's see whose attack was more effective. Rogers stood still in the air, and the Dragon Soul shot out a rainbow light, holding up the fell cannon. Terran Gorfiend originally wanted to fire one cannon after another, but suddenly saw that Rogers's attack was actually holding up the fell cannon, and immediately increased the output of fell energy. He had the fell energy of the entire hand of Gul'dan as his ammunition depot and didn't believe that he couldn't beat the disc in Rogers's hand. The rainbow light and the fell energy mutually offset and disintegrated, and the dissipated energy was absorbed in the air, quickly condensing a large amount of energy. Suddenly, the energy collapsed and then expanded violently, and a huge shock wave attacked Rogers and Terran Gorfiend. Rogers quickly turned the rainbow light to form a protective shield for himself, and then was thrown out by the shock wave, smashing a huge pit in the ground. Rogers! Dallas galloped to the edge of the pit. Rogers looked at him in astonishment. Wasn't Dallas dozens of miles away from him? After a while, Rogers's injuries recovered. If it weren't for the protection of Iron Body, he would have been directly killed just now. Crawling out of the pit, Rogers looked towards the hand of Gul'dan along with the cracking sound. The entire hand of Gul'dan was already fragmented, and the fell energy on it splashed around, spreading over hundreds of miles. Where was Terran Gorfiend? He wouldn't still be alive, would he? Achievement unlocked. Cleared the hand of Gul'dan, gained 10 achievement points. Received the gratitude of the Drainer Life Spirit, life sense increased to master level. Chapter 83. Dallas looked at the omnipresent fell energy ahead and frowned, asking, "Is there any way to clear this fell energy?" Roger shook his head, "We can only go around. Have the Drania search for another path to the Black Temple. I'll take the Dragonhawk Riders ahead." Dallas opened his mouth, feeling like he was superfluous. Since the division of forces, he had only participated in one battle in Shatrath, with Roger single-handedly pushing through the rest. However, he didn't have any good solutions in the current situation. When Turalion decided to split the forces, he considered Roger's strong individual strength, which is why he sent him to pursue Terran Gorfiend. The black dragon whelp looked at the shattered hand of Gul'dan, fearing the human on its back. It was fortunate that it hadn't resisted in the beginning, otherwise its end would definitely not have been better than the hand of Gul'dan's. From the current situation, being a mount wasn't unacceptable. Roger didn't know what the black dragon whelp was thinking. He led the Dragonhawk riders directly to the sky above the Black Temple. On the platform of the Black Temple, Nazul and the Shadowmoon clan warlocks had already begun the ritual. However, opening the dark portal was not an easy task, and they needed some time. Roger wouldn't give them time and immediately issued the order to attack. The Shadowmoon clan warlocks were attacked. Some stopped the ritual and began to organize a counterattack. But with Roger present, it was difficult for them to mount an effective counterattack, and the arcane missiles filling the sky kept them busy. At this moment, Terran Gorfiend dragged his battered body over. The explosion just now hadn't killed him. The powerful Fel energy shield blocked most of the shockwave, and his Fel-enhanced body saved Terran Gorfiend's life. However, even so, he had been stunned, which is why he arrived at the Black Temple a step behind Roger. However, he didn't directly attack Roger. Instead, he used Fel energy to connect to a black crystal creature, bringing it to the sky above the Black Temple. That dark creature radiated a terrifying shadow energy. As soon as it appeared, it indiscriminately attacked Roger and the Dragonhawk riders. Roger quickly cast a mana shield to protect the Dragonhawk riders, but the Dragonhawks were severely damaged by the shadow energy and fell from the sky. One attack wiped out the Dragonhawk riders. The elves weren't badly injured, but the Dragonhawks were unlikely to survive. Even if they did, they wouldn't be able to fight. The Dragonhawk riders could only be rebuilt after the next generation of Dragonhawks was bred. The lightly injured elves attacked again, but were blocked by the orcs in the Black Temple. The black dragon whelp circled in the sky, dodging the dark creature's attacks. Roger took the opportunity to check on the elves and breathed a slight sigh of relief. If all the Dragonhawk riders had been lost here, it would have been difficult for him to explain to Alyria. The Dragonhawk riders were composed of talented elven rangers, each with the potential to become a High Ranger. High Rangers were the commanders of the Rangers, equivalent to the rank of general in human society. Returning his gaze to the dark creature, its Naru-like body allowed Roger to recognize its identity: Kaera. 3 Naru helped the Drania escape Argus. The long journey exhausted Kaera's light, turning it into its current state. Having lost its consciousness, Kaera attacked the other 2 Naru, Kayur and Dior. The ship they were on was also damaged and crashed on the plains of Nagrand, a crystal mountain called Oshagun. During the ship's crash, Kaera was thrown out and wandered the skies of Shadowmoon Valley. The Shadowmoon orcs discovered it and believed it to be a dark god, so they gave it a name, the Dark Star. When the orcs attacked the temple of Karabaer, they transported Kaera to the battlefield. If the Drania hadn't escaped quickly, who knows how many would have died. Because Kaera was constantly radiating shadow energy, turning the temple of Karabaer into darkness, that's why the temple of Karabaer became the Black Temple. However, even knowing Kaera's backstory, Roger didn't have any good way to deal with it. He only had one way, and that was the Dragon Soul. It was hard to imagine how he would deal with these powerful villains without the Dragon Soul. Roger sighed inwardly. Constantly using the Dragon Soul made him seem incapable. Silently taking out the Dragon Soul, he aimed it at Kaera and released a prismatic beam. Caught off guard, Kaera's body began to break apart. However, it quickly mobilized dark energy to attack Roger. Although it had no consciousness, instinct told it that it could stop the Dragon Soul's attack by killing Roger. Roger retracted the black dragon whelp into the magical reins and used Blink to land on the platform. All of Kaera's energy rushed into the air, and it would take some time to continue attacking Roger. Taking advantage of this gap, Roger aimed the Dragon Soul at Nazul. Nazul widened his eyes in horror and quickly waved the scepter of Sargeras, prematurely opening the dark portal. The dark portal appeared between Roger and Nazul. The prismatic beam of the Dragon Soul pierced through the dark portal and shot into the void. Nazul breathed a sigh of relief. The feeling of narrowly escaping death was great. Terran Gorfiend roared. The dark portal that Nazul opened wasn't the place he wanted. However, he didn't blame Nazul, as he had been forced to do so. With Roger here, even he wanted to open the dark portal as soon as possible. He turned the Dark Star, making it hold Roger back, and charged towards the opened dark portal. Only by escaping Draenor could he escape Roger's threat. Kaera frantically attacked Roger, who had almost killed it just now. While Roger was dodging, Nazul also led his people towards the dark portal. If they didn't escape, Roger would definitely kill him. Seeing that Terran Gorfiend and Nazul were about to run, Roger immediately used an arcane hand to knock Terran Gorfiend away, then blinked past the dark portal, with the arcane hand blocking the path of Nazul and the others. He would rather let Terran Gorfiend escape than let Nazul enter the dark portal. Enduring Kaera's attack, Roger used the Dragon Soul to turn Nazul to ashes. The powerful shadow energy pressed Roger to the ground. Roger quickly blinked to Nazul's ashes, taking the Scepter of Sargeras and the Eye of Dalaran. Then, he used the Dragon Soul again to strike Kaera. The powerful prismatic beam shattered Kaera's body, turning it into dark crystals that scattered across the sky. Roger turned around, only to find that Terran Gorfiend and most of the Shadow Moon warlocks had disappeared into the dark portal. The good news was that they hadn't taken the Book of Medivh. The Black Temple began to shake. Roger frowned, wondering if the destruction of Draenor was unavoidable. Roger turned his gaze to the Book of Medivh, perhaps there was still a way. Chapter 84. Roger walked up to the floating Book of Medivh and discovered that it contained instructions on how to open the dark portal. Using Arcane Hand, he reached into the magic and gently turned a page. Sure enough, the next page showed how to close the dark portal. Clearly, Medivh had deliberately recorded this information, a testament to his remaining conscience. Thank you, Medivh. Following the instructions, Roger raised the Scepter of Sargeras and channeled mana into it. The Scepter of Sargeras began to shimmer with arcane light, and then a beam of arcane energy shot towards the dark portal. Guided by the arcane energy, the dark portal slowly closed. The trembling of the earth lessened somewhat. It seemed that, just like in the historical events, Nazul hadn't opened just one dark portal. However, judging from the current situation, the number of dark portals opened by Nazul was not as many as in the historical timeline. Rumble. A loud noise came from the north, and the earth completely stabilized. Roger looked north in surprise. Comparing it with the map, that area should be Hellfire Peninsula, the dark portal connecting to Azeroth. Who blew up the dark portal? Hellfire Peninsula, dark portal. Kadger quickly stowed away the skull of Gul'dan, disgustedly wiping the fell energy from his hands. Turning around, he shouted loudly at the attacking orcs, "Orcs, you will not enter Azeroth again. Damn humans!" An orc chieftain wielding a battle axe roared, "Get out of Draenor. This land doesn't belong to you. Grom Mash, we must seize the skull of Gul'dan to reopen the dark portal," Kargath Bladefist said. If Roger were here, he would definitely wonder why the Warsong clan had come to Hellfire Peninsula. Before the dark portal was opened, the Warsong clan was the most battle-hardened clan in the Horde. Especially after drinking the blood of demons, the Warsong clan's brutal nature became even more difficult to restrain. After the Horde defeated the Drania and Arako, they had no more enemies, and the orcs began to kill each other. Black Hand, in order to protect his people, drove the relatively insane Warsong, Thunderlord, Bone Chewer, Shattered Hand, and Bleeding Hollow clans out of Hellfire Citadel. After being driven out of Hellfire Citadel, the Warsong clan returned to their old home in Nagrand and continued their nomadic lifestyle. However, their insane killing spree hadn't changed, and the beasts of Nagrand were slaughtered by the Warsong clan. Fortunately, Nagrand possessed powerful primal beasts. Even if the Warsong clan wanted to hunt a primal beast, it would require a great deal of effort. And so, the Warsong clan stayed in Nagrand for several years, until Kargath came looking for them. When Roger recovered Shatrath, the Warsong clan had already been persuaded by Kargath to head north to Zungar Marsh and return to Hellfire Peninsula, launching a frenzied attack on Hellfire Citadel. The Alliance forces left behind to guard Hellfire Citadel couldn't resist the Warsong clan's attacks. In addition, Kargath was familiar with Hellfire Citadel, and soon Hellfire Citadel was breached. The Alliance forces could only retreat to Honorhold. Even the black dragon whelps that Roger had left in Hellfire Citadel couldn't be taken away. While retreating, they also sent a distress signal to Turalion. Turalion and the others encountered an attack by black dragon whelps when they headed north to Gorgrond. Soon, they joined forces with the local Gron and defeated Deathwing. To avoid conflict with the Gron, they withdrew from the Gron's territory. Just then, Turalion received a request for assistance from the Honorhold army. He immediately had Kurdran and Kadger return to Honorhold on griffins to provide support. After Kadger arrived at Honorhold, he received news that the Warsong clan was heading towards the Dark Portal. Therefore, they headed towards the Dark Portal again. By the time they arrived at the Dark Portal was about to fall. Kadger and Kurdran immediately harassed the Warsong clan, which stabilized the Dark Portal's defenses. After defending for 2 days, the Dark Portal finally couldn't be held any longer. Just as the Warsong clan was about to break through the defenders' lines, the earth began to tremble, as if an earthquake had occurred. The orcs were surprised and uncertain, not knowing what was happening. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Kadger used the skull of Gul'dan to destroy the dark portal. He would rather not return to his homeland than allow the orcs to wreak havoc on Azeroth again. The earth stabilized, and Grommash once again issued the order to attack. He personally took to the field, heading straight for Kadger. Kadger continuously cast spells, but they were all easily dodged by Grommash. Grommash, with an agility that didn't match his stature, quickly rushed to Kadger's side, raising Gorehowl to strike at Kadger. But how could a mage be so easily killed? Kadger blinked to a rock, raised his hand, and unleashed a barrage of spells at the Warsong clan. As the destined successor to the Guardian, Kadger inherited most of Medevaya's legacy. With legendary equipment like the chicken leg staff and Medevaya's vast knowledge, Kadger's strength had increased too much in the past 2 years. Damn it! Grommash spat fiercely, thinking of a way to kill Kadger. Just then, a human army rushed down the mountain. It was Turalion leading reinforcements back. Under Turalion's leadership, the paladins quickly crushed the orc rear guard. Kill! The human soldiers followed closely behind, quickly squeezing the orcs' space to maneuver. The Warsong clan's nomadic lifestyle made them very powerful cavalry. If cavalry wanted to exert their greatest strength, they needed room to maneuver. After the human soldiers squeezed the Warsong clan's space, the wolves had no room to move and could only stand in place to attack. In this way, the cavalry lost their advantage and became inflexible. "Are you hiding something from me?" Grommash asked, staring at Kargath. Kargath chuckled, "I just haven't had time to tell you yet." Seeing Grommash continue to stare at him, Kargath quickly said, "I'll tell you everything. Terran Gorefiend wants to coerce Nazul into opening a new dark portal. This doesn't really concern us, but I learned from a warlock that opening the dark portal is a very dangerous thing and could cause a spatial tear. And just now, the earth trembled. I think Nazul must have successfully opened the dark portal. If we can't escape Draenor, we may be destroyed along with Draenor." Watching Kargath demonstrate an exploding action, Grommash was furious. "It's all you reckless guys who have turned Draenor into what it is now." Although he was reckless and warlike, he still understood many things. However, he wasn't good at persuading others, so he could only manage his own affairs. And after drinking the blood of demons, he couldn't even manage his own affairs, let alone lead others. Grommash raised his head and looked at the sky. He didn't know when a huge rift had appeared in the sky, and some kind of energy was flowing through the rift. In the flowing energy, a green meteor flashed from time to time. Chapter 85. Hellfire. A loud shout came from the direction of the dark portal, and the orcs quickly turned their heads, only to see the humans there frantically preparing their defenses. "What's going on?" Before the orcs could figure out what was happening, they felt the sky light up. Then they looked up and saw countless green meteors falling towards them. The dire wolves sensed the danger and began to flee in all directions. Boom, boom, boom. The green meteors crashed to the ground, and gigantic hellfires crawled out of the craters, attacking the surrounding orcs. The orcs were powerless against these powerful siege machines and could only scatter and flee. Grommash was astonished. It was the first time he had seen these powerful monsters. But after a moment he immediately came to his senses and quickly waved his hand, "Retreat! Stay away from these monsters." Under the pursuit of the hellfires, the Warsong orcs quickly retreated back to Hellfire Citadel. Grommash questioned Kargath, "Are these monsters also part of Terran Gorefiend's plan?" "Of course not." Kargath was also dumbfounded. "I haven't heard anything about monsters at all. Moreover, Terran Gorefiend is no longer important, what's important is how many monsters there are. Just the number we just saw is more than we can resist. I think we should summon the other clans and resist the invasion of these monsters together." Grommash fell into deep thought. He wasn't very interested in Kargath's suggestion. Instead, he was worried about whether monsters had appeared in Nagrand, where his son Garrosh was. Kargath didn't know what Grommash was thinking, and he continued to try to persuade him. "Grommash, now is a critical moment for the orcs. As the clan with the most survivors, the Warsong clan must shoulder the burden of the horde, and you must also bear the responsibility of Warkif." Warkif? Something called ambition stirred in Grommash's heart. "Die, demon!" Turalion, holding a long sword condensed with holy light, chopped a hellfire into pieces. Compared to the orcs, the alliance was much more adept at dealing with hellfires. Under the protection of the holy light, paladins could kill hellfires as long as they weren't attacked. And there were the mages, although their spells were ineffective against hellfires, these experienced mages didn't cast spells directly on the hellfires. Instead, they used the physical attacks brought about by spells, such as using levitate to move stones over the hellfires' heads and then cancelling the spell, using the stones to smash the hellfires to death. Soon, the ground was littered with fragments of hellfires, and their numbers continued to decrease. Turalyon asked Kadger with concern, "Why are there so many demons here? Could they have been summoned by some powerful warlock? No spellcaster could summon so many hellfires." Kadger shook his head, looking worriedly at the sky. "I suspect that the rift is the reason for the hellfire's appearance. It's still a little late." Roge looked at the rift in the sky and sighed. Nazul held the ritual in a hurry, so he didn't open too many dark portals. After Roge closed the dark portal in the Black Temple, Kadger timely blew up the dark portal on the Hellfire Peninsula, which saved Drainer's shattered fate. But it still caused great damage to Drainer, opening a rift to the twisting nether in the sky. It was possible that a group of hellfires happened to be near the rift, discovered Drainer, and wanted to come over and destroy it. Because the rift was far from Shadowmoon Valley, not many hellfires reached Shadowmoon Valley. But it still caused damage to Shadowmoon Valley, and Dalaran's army encountered hellfire attacks. However, Roge didn't have time to help Dalaran, he just had the Dragonhawk riders abandon the attack and brought them to the rooftop to collect Nara's shards. Afterward, he began to study the Book of Medivh and the Scepter of Sargeras, not even having time to deal with the orcs inside the Black Temple. He had to find the locations of the other dark portals and then close them. The appearance of the hellfires gave him a bad feeling. If these hellfires transmitted information about Drainer to the Burning Legion, would the Burning Legion launch a full-scale invasion? In historical events, after Drainer shattered, the Burning Legion launched a full-scale invasion here, and the Abyss Lord Magtheridon occupied Hellfire Citadel, ruling the entire Outland. Wait, Roge suddenly thought of Kil'jaeden's seduction of Gul'dan. The Burning Legion had long obtained the coordinates of Drainer, only sending an army after Drainer shattered. So, if the Burning Legion had been preparing to attack Drainer, it was just that the journey was too far and they hadn't arrived yet. Nazul opening the Dark Portal was just giving the Burning Legion a shortcut. And now, the Dark Portal had also opened a shortcut for the Burning Legion, so the Burning Legion's attack on Drainer was inevitable. Arcane magic surrounded Roge, and the Book of Medivh constantly flipped, as he searched for everything recorded inside about the Dark Portal. Under the blessing of Grandmaster-level arcane wisdom, Roge constantly absorbed the knowledge recorded in the Book of Medivh. Soon, he waved the Scepter of Sargeras and began to explore. Arcane magic formed a map of Drainer in front of him, and several rotating vortices appeared on the map. These were the dark portals. The result was that a large number of demons were entering this world through each dark portal. They quickly occupied the area around the dark portals and used the surrounding resources to build frameworks for these dark portals. Obviously, they wanted to use these dark portals for a long time until they destroyed this world. After finding the answer, Roge dismissed the arcane map. He summoned the Dragonhawk riders, collected the Nara's shards, and then led them down the platform and into the interior of the Black Temple. Before the dark portal returning to Azeroth was rebuilt, he could only stay in Drainer. Therefore, he had to find a territory for himself. The Black Temple was built on a leyline node of Drainer, making it a very good place to settle down. However, before that, he needed to eliminate the orcs here, dispel the shadow energy, and transform it. The Shadowmoon orcs had already realized that Terran Gorefiend and Nazul had abandoned them, and they all felt very desperate. In desperation, they wanted to perish together with Roge, but none of them could get close to Roge, and they all fell under Roge's spells. Chapter 86. When Dallas led his army through hardship to the Black Temple, Roger had long since finished the battle. The Dragonhawk Knights he sent to contact Turalyon had flown away several hours ago. Of course, the Dragonhawk Knights were riding a mini Warhawks, not Dragonhawks. Dallas was speechless. He felt he shouldn't have come to the Black Temple. He should have turned back when he encountered the fell energy blocking the way. No, he should have stayed in Shatrath and helped Adal with some defensive work. Unlike now, he traveled thousands of miles to the Black Temple, preparing for a great battle, but didn't even see a single living enemy, let alone fight. If it weren't for the many beasts and remaining sporealings encountered on the way, it would have been a purely armed parade. Roger didn't notice Dallas's depression and said, "You've come at the right time. Have the soldiers clean up here. We'll use this as our base from now on." "Hey! Dallas immediately sensed something was wrong when he heard this. Roger explained, Nazul opened many dark portals. I only closed the one above our heads. Afterward, I used magic to check the other dark portals and found demons invading in large numbers. The dark portal we came through is already broken. I don't know if the demons destroyed it or Kajir did. So, until we rebuild the dark portal, we can't return to Azeroth for the time being. Dallas was silent when he heard this. The Drania who came with him also looked at each other in dismay. They thought that after Roger occupied the Black Temple, he would return it to them like Shatrath. They didn't expect Roger to want to occupy it for a long time. Seeing the Drania's ugly faces, Roger said indifferently, helping you seize Shatrath was our prior agreement. The Black Temple is not within our agreement. However, as allies, you can also live in the Black Temple, but we will occupy the dominant position. The Drania's faces improved a lot. Although they lost their dominant position, they could still return to their center of faith. Roger and the others would eventually leave. When Roger and the others returned to their own world, they would inevitably return the Black Temple to them. However, they soon frowned again because the Black Temple was full of shadow energy, which made them feel irritable. Most of them used holy light energy and naturally had some repulsion to shadows. Moreover, the Temple of Karabayr was a temple of holy light, and the ubiquitous shadows reminded them of the dark side of the sacred Naru. Roger divided the upper and part of the lower levels of the Black Temple to the Alliance, and part of the lower levels to the Drania. The reassembled Drania numbered several hundred, all combat personnel. Except for a small number of rangers, the others were either priests or paladins. Although their strength might not be great, purifying the shadow energy in the Black Temple was not a problem. Therefore, Roger needed them. Although Nazul's opening of the dark portal affected the seas of Draenor, it only lowered the coastline by about half a meter and did not have much impact. The only problem now was how to build a ship. The original vegetation of Shadowmoon Valley was mainly spore plants. When the orcs attacked the Temple of Karabayr, they destroyed the spore forests. In addition, the large-scale use of fell energy almost made Shadowmoon Valley barren. It was too difficult to find wood. Roger's magic bag originally had a lot of wood, but when he left Stormwind City, most of the supplies were given to Varian, with wood and gold mines accounting for the majority. The wood Roger currently had could only be used to make decks, and he couldn't even build a keel. He turned his attention to his skill bar. Now, the only thing he could rely on was the skill brought by absorbing the divine essence of life, breath of life. Roger came to the open space outside the Black Temple, placed a wooden board in the sea, and used breath of life on the board. Soon, he felt the life rhythm in the board. Although the tree had already died, under the effect of Roger's spell, it quickly sprouted new buds. The buds gradually grew and spread around, quickly occupying hundreds of square meters of area. The buds began to take root, and soon branches and leaves grew, and trees rose from the ground. In one day, a forest grew. The human warriors were shocked. It was the first time they had seen a spell that could quickly grow trees. The elves and Drania were very happy. The elves were happy because they were naturally close to nature and liked trees, while the Drania really saw the hope of healing Draenor, although the trees Roger planted were not species of this world. But the next moment, Roger issued an order that made the elves and Drania uncomfortable. Cut down these trees and transport them to the dock to make ships. Then, amidst the elves and Drania's hesitant expressions, he returned to the Black Temple, because the Dragonhawk Knight who went to contact Turalion had just landed on the roof. The Dragonhawk Knight brought news from Turalion that they had returned to Honorhold. But their situation was not good. To the west was Hellfire Citadel occupied by orcs, to the east was the dark portal from which demons were constantly emerging. This dark portal did not lead to Azeroth, but was reopened by Nazul, located at the easternmost end of Hellfire Peninsula, and to the south was the ogre territory of Farallon, where friend and foe were indistinguishable. It seemed that building ships needed to be accelerated in order to save Turalion. After saving Turalion, he still had to save Shatrath. Although there was no dark portal near Shatrath, there were dark portals in Arak Summit and Nagrand. These two places had no natives capable of resisting the demons. Roger immediately summoned the Drania craftsmen and elven rangers. The Drania craftsmen mainly manufactured Arconite crystals and their supporting devices to solve the ship's power and energy problems. The elven rangers mainly helped him check the Apexus crystals to find ways to manufacture large-scale weapons of mass destruction. The Arakos Apexus civilization could create the powerful breath of Rukmar, and naturally had designs with less power than it. As long as he could find something suitable for loading onto the ship, Roger could let the demons see what the terror of battleships and cannons was. Hard work pays off. After everyone searched day and night, they finally found a weakened version of the Breath of Rukmar, the manufacturing method of the Apex's cannon. Then Roger spent a few more days researching with the Drania craftsman how to charge the Apex's cannon. After the Arconite crystal power pod and the Apex's cannon were installed on the ship, a magical warship named Demon Slayer was officially launched, ushering in earth-shattering changes in naval warfare in Draenor and even Azeroth. Chapter 87. Roger left Dallas to oversee the overall situation. He only took 100 ordinary soldiers, 20 members of the Swords of Lothar, and 5 Drania artificers. The ordinary human soldiers couldn't use magic and could only perform ordinary sailor duties. The Swords of Lothar members followed the Drania to learn how to operate the Akane crystal devices, and if possible, learn how to manufacture Akane crystals. He didn't bring any elves because the Elven Rangers had more important tasks, breeding a new generation of Dragonhawks to restore aerial combat capabilities as soon as possible, and examining the remaining Apex's crystals to find new technologies that could be utilized. The Demon's Bane sailed out of the harbor, heading north towards the eastern coast of Hellfire Peninsula. When Hellfire Peninsula was still Tainan jungle, it was inhabited by 2 orc clans. The Bleeding Hollow clan lived around Farallon. After Hellfire Citadel was built, the Bleeding Hollow clan entered Hellfire Citadel and fought everywhere with the Horde army. Farallon was occupied by ogres, who transformed it into an arena. The other clan that lived in Tainan jungle was the Bone Chewer clan. They lived in the valley in the eastern part of Tainan jungle, which is east of the Dark Portal. In World of Warcraft version 6.0, the Alliance army was ambushed as soon as they came out of the Dark Portal, and then retreated from the east of the Dark Portal, entering the Bone Chewer clan's territory. They were ambushed by them, forcing them to withdraw from Tainan jungle and move to Shadowmoon Valley to develop. When the Horde was founded, the Bone Chewer clan also entered Hellfire Citadel. However, later, they and several other clans, including the Warsong clan, were driven out of the fortress by Black Hand, and they returned to live in the Eastern Valley. The newly opened Dark Portal in Hellfire Peninsula was located on the mountain on the eastern coast of the Bone Chewer clan's territory. Demons came out of the Dark Portal and launched an attack on the Bone Chewer clan. Although the Bone Chewer clan drank demon blood, the one commanding the demons to attack was the powerful Pit Lord Magtheridon. Countless Doomguards charged the Bone Chewer clan's lines, and all Bone Chewer orcs who resisted were killed. The rest of the orcs were confined in the valley, and Magtheridon enslaved these orcs, making them build camps in the valley. The demons collected materials to build a framework for the Dark Portal. By the time Roger had built the Demon's Bane, Magtheridon had also built the framework for the Dark Portal. After the Dark Portal stabilized, Magtheridon was able to step out of the Dark Portal and enter this world he had dreamed of. Although he was very dissatisfied that this world retained a large number of creatures, he had come to destroy these creatures. Kill all the creatures on this continent for me. On the Demon's Bane, the human soldiers were shocked to see Magtheridon. They had never seen such a tall creature. If this creature, as tall as a city wall, were to attack a city, wouldn't the city wall be easily broken through? Humans facing such a monster, apart from mages, had no way to deal with him. Damn it, that's Magtheridon. The Drania, who had been dealing with the Burning Legion, immediately recognized Magtheridon's identity. He is a powerful pit lord who has destroyed countless worlds. Roger just glanced at Magtheridon and then began to have the Drania artificers activate the Apex's cannon. Aim at the Dark Portal and fire. The Drania artificers quickly moved into action. Anyway, they were at sea, so even if the attack was ineffective, they could easily retreat from the sea. Although the Burning Legion had destroyed many worlds, they were not good at naval warfare. Unless Sargeras took action personally, the Burning Legion would first destroy the land, and then slowly corrode the sea with fell energy. After the sea dried up, they would wrap the entire planet in fell energy and slowly corrode the planet completely. The energy fluctuations caused by the Apex's cannon charging alarmed Magtheridon, and he sneered as he raised the spear in his hand. Seeing me and not running away? You are simply courting death, you vermin. Fell energy gathered on the spear, and Magtheridon thrust it forward, firing a fell blast at the Demon's Bane. The Drania artificers were startled when they saw Magtheridon's attack. They hurriedly fired an Apex's cannon. Boom! Boom! The fell energy struck the water in front of the Demon's Bane, and the resulting huge waves caused the Demon's Bane to shake violently. But after Roger activated the magic shield, the water around the Demon's Bane immediately calmed down, without any waves. Roger had thought of this situation when building the Demon's Bane. He originally wanted to add a levitation device, but he didn't have the technology. Since he couldn't stabilize the ship, he would stabilize the water surface. It only required some arcane energy to do so easily. The cannon fire struck the rocks next to Magtheridon, and the rebel kept hitting him. Fortunately, he blocked his soft belly with his wings in time, otherwise, he might have been injured. Having suffered a small loss made Magtheridon extremely angry. Just as he was about to retaliate, he saw 7 or 8 bright spots light up on the Demon's Bane, scaring him into jumping off the mountain peak. Boom boom boom. The cannon fire kept flying over Magtheridon's head, making a series of violent explosions. Magtheridon looked in panic and saw that the newly built dark portal framework had been destroyed by the cannon fire. The dark portal has a characteristic that if there is no framework, it requires a large amount of energy to maintain. With a framework, the transmission will be stable and the required energy will be reduced. But the dark portal will also be connected to the framework. If the framework is destroyed, the dark portal will also be closed. No! Magtheridon roared, and he jumped up the hillside, wanting to sink the ship to vent his anger. However, as soon as he poked his head out, he was so scared that he lay down on the ground. Countless Apex's cannons brushed past his head and hit the mountain behind him. Magtheridon turned back, and the mountain was covered with the remains of Doom Guards. These powerful demons who had slaughtered countless creatures could not resist the attack of the Apex's cannon at all. What is this? It's almost catching up with the attack of a fell warship. Magtheridon muttered to himself. He didn't expect anyone to answer him, he was just expressing his shock in this way. Damn it, if I had a little more time to build fell cannons, I wouldn't have to fear this guy. But unfortunately, the dark portal was closed, and he couldn't transport the materials to build fell cannons. So, he can only endure the one-sided massacre of the Apex's cannon. Chapter 88. Under the relentless barrage of the Apex's cannons, the demons suffered heavy casualties. Only by hiding in the valley were any demons able to survive. Amidst the chaos of the demons, many bone-chewer orcs seized the opportunity to escape. In the past, the demons would have undoubtedly captured these slaves and tortured them to death, but now they were too busy trying to save their own lives to care about the fate of the bone-chewer orcs. Magtheridon also arrived in the valley, his face unusually grim as he watched the flashes of light in the sky. This valley was not a place to stay for long. He had to find a location that the magic cannons couldn't reach to use as a base, and then slowly summon more demons. The Apex's cannons finally ceased their attack. The energy of the Arconite crystals was, after all, limited. To sustain such a high-intensity attack for 10 minutes was already remarkable. Moreover, the demon faller needed to reserve some energy for propulsion. With the dark portal destroyed, the objective of this battle had been achieved. The reason Roger had the Apex's cannons continue firing was to leave Magtheridon with a deep impression, ensuring he wouldn't attack Honor Hold. The demon faller sailed west along the coastline, while Roger, riding a black dragon whelp, flew into the sky to find a landing site near Honor Hold. He wanted to establish a port in the southern Hellfire Peninsula to facilitate support for Honor Hold. Roger had considered withdrawing all the troops from Honor Hold, but abandoning this stronghold was a pity. Soon, Roger found a suitable location on the coastline south of Hellfire Citadel. It was a delta formed by a river, and due to the drop in sea level, a large area of land had been exposed. However, the river channels along the mountains surrounding Farah Allen were still fast and deep, allowing the demon faller to sail inland and reach a riverbank only a few dozen miles from Honor Hold. Roger sent people to contact Honor Hold, and then once again used the breath of life to create forests and establish a simple camp and dock. Before long, Turalion and Kadger led their troops over. They all wore curious expressions as they looked at the strange demon faller. Is this the warship you used to defeat the demons and destroy the dark portal? Roger nodded and introduced the magic warship to the two. It's called the Demon Faller. It's a magic warship built with Apexis and Drania technology. The power core is composed of 100 Arconite crystals, which can support a full power firing of an Apexis cannon 1,000 times. 10 Apexis cannons are installed on the deck, which means that, without considering power, each cannon can fire an average of 100 times. Roger then recounted the battle with the demons, and the two immediately became interested in this tactic of killing enemies from a distance while remaining unscathed. While building the port, the two would often visit the workshops in the camp. Inside the workshop, Roger, along with Drania artisans and members of the Swords of Lothar, was producing Apexis cannons. He wanted to install 10 Apex's cannons around the port and camp to defend against demons, orcs, or ogres attacking the port. 4 cannons were installed on the watchtowers of the dock, 4 were installed on the watchtowers around the camp, and the remaining 2 were installed on nearby hilltops. The 10 cannons formed a network of fire, blocking all possible routes of attack on the dock as much as possible. The orcs in Hellfire Citadel were the first to discover the port's activity. They sent people to scout, but several were killed by the Apex's cannons as soon as they revealed themselves. The remaining orc scouts quickly returned to report, and Grommash Hellscream felt a headache upon hearing this. He wasn't afraid of fighting humans head-on. With his bravery, he could easily kill even the strongest human warriors. What he feared were all kinds of strange spells. After all, mages were the darlings of the world, whether in Azeroth or Draenor. The ogres also sent people to observe, and after testing the waters, they also retreated. The power of the Apex's cannons made the 2 major forces around Honorhold dare not act rashly, and Roger began to accelerate the construction of the port. In less than a month, the port was successfully built, and the camp was upgraded to a fortress. Because it was close to Honorhold, Roger named the port Honor Port. Roger did not insist on keeping these 2 artifacts. Although they were precious, they were far inferior to the dragon's soul. Moreover, the value of the Book of Medivh lay in the knowledge it contained. Roger had long since learned the knowledge and recorded it in his own spellbook. Coupled with his own understanding of magic, the value of his Book of Rogers had surpassed that of the Book of Medivh. As for leaving behind the Scepter of Sargeras, it was because Roger wanted to continue studying teleportation magic. As long as he could understand the principle of portals, Roger could open portals from the Black Temple to Shatrath, Honorhold, and other places, saving time on travel. When the research reached an advanced stage, reopening the Dark Portal and returning to Azeroth would not be impossible. While fulfilling the Alliance's friendship, he also did not allow his allies to become too strong. After all, in terms of allegiance, Roger belonged to the Kingdom of Stormwind, and Kadger belonged to Dalaran. Although the Alliance was united, there was also competition. When dividing the property of Karajan, Roger and Kadger had conflicts, but neither of them took it to heart. Before the orcs, or even the Burning Legion, were dealt with, personal conflicts would be put aside. After settling everything in Honor Port, the Demon Faller left Honor Port and sailed west to Talater. Due to the tearing of the Dark Portal, the mountains east of Tuarem fractured in the middle, forming a new river channel. The lake water around Tuarem flowed into the sea, turning Tuarem from a small island into a large island. Following the river channel, the Demon Faller docked around Tuarem, and Roger rode a black dragon whelp to Shatrath. He was eager to return to his wife's side, as Alyria had reached her due date. Chapter 89. The black dragon whelp landed on the Shatrath city wall. Just as it approached the tower, it saw a group of monsters gathered there. These monsters looked a lot like Drania, but they were shorter and their bodies were heavily corrupted, resembling melting wax figures. However, Roger recognized these monsters. They were the Broken. The Broken were originally Drania who stayed behind to cover the retreat from Shatrath, but they were corrupted by fell energy during a massive explosion created by the orcs, transforming them into their current state. They chose to stay behind for the safety of their brethren, resulting in their current appearance. However, the Drania they sought to protect did not appreciate them. A group of Drania blocked the Broken's path, looking at the ugly and filthy Broken with disgust. "You fallen ones, leave Shatrath immediately. This place is no longer suitable for you. Do not bring corruption back to Shatrath. You are desecrating the light." The Broken were furious. They didn't want to become like this either. But during the explosion, the fell energy turned into mist, and they couldn't escape, forced to passively accept the corruption. After being corrupted, they once wanted to end their lives, but they eventually persevered, and their reason for living became revenge against the orcs. After fighting the orcs for several years, they encountered messengers from Shatrath and learned that the Drania had reclaimed the city. The Broken returned to Shatrath with excitement, only to be met with expulsion. The brethren they once protected now wanted to drive them out of Shatrath. The Broken gripped their weapons tightly, looking at the Drania with hatred. Roger stopped. Aurelia's adjutant, that's Rhea, explained, "These people were once Drania, but they were corrupted by fell energy, transforming them into what they are now. They call themselves the Broken, and they have been fighting the orcs all these years. After the Shatrath messengers found them, they wanted to return to Shatrath to help the Drania, but the Drania rejected them because of the corruption on their bodies. These former Drania heroes are now treated like this, which is truly disheartening. But after all, this is a matter for the Drania themselves, and we shouldn't interfere too much. At this moment, someone emerged from the broken and asked the Drania, if it weren't for us, would you still be basking in the light? You once discriminated against Murad, but now you revere him as a savior. Which one is the real you? The Drania felt somewhat guilty, but they quickly became angry out of embarrassment. No matter what the broken said, they wanted to drive them away. Let's go. Akama said to the broken, disheartened. They no longer consider us their kin, and there's no need for us to stay here. But we will continue our mission because we cannot forget where we came from. The broken turned around and followed Akama's footsteps, walking out of the city. The city they once risked their lives to protect was no longer their home. Roger's expression shifted slightly. He turned to look at that's Ria. Send someone to follow them out of the city, and then tell the broken that I want to talk to them. Have them find me in Tuarim. That's Ria was taken aback. You want to accept these broken? Acceptance is not the right word, cooperation is possible, Roger said. Our strength in Draenor is too weak. We must try to win over any forces we can. Not only the broken, but also the Arako. Have them send an army to Tuarim. Next, we will help them reclaim the spires of Iraq and help them return home. That's Ria nodded. Although the alliance had thousands of people, it was still too few. If they were to defend alone, they could only defend Honorhold and the Black Temple, and all other strongholds would have to be abandoned. But after joining the Drania alliance, they gained a large city like Shatrath as a stronghold. If they could also unite the Broken and the Arako, they could gain 2 more large strongholds. Now that the alliance could not return to Azeroth, they had to develop well in Draenor to prepare for their return. Then I won't accompany you. That's Ria bid farewell to Roger and went to arrange matters for the Broken and the Arako. Roger walked up the tower alone. The Drania who had blocked the door just now awkwardly hid to the side. Although their actions of driving away the Broken were shameless, it didn't mean they had no sense of shame. People are indeed complex creatures. Roger ignored the Drania and quickened his pace up the tower. Soon, he saw Alleria teaching ranger tactics, her belly large with child. Alleria entrusted the task of garrisoning Shatrath to Thatsria, and then she and Roger rode the Black Dragon Whelp to Tuarim together. The Broken were already waiting there. They had long heard of Roger's name and were very interested that this alliance commander wanted to meet them, these exiles. These homeless people now needed recognition the most. After Roger arrived, he first arranged for Alleria to visit the destroyer, and then he met with the Broken's leaders, Akama and Nubudin. Akama was one of the 5 great Drania archbishops, holding an extraordinary position. Nubudin was the religious leader of the Broken. They had been abandoned by the light, and it was Nubudin who brought the way of the shaman, allowing them to regain their confidence. Respected commander, I wonder what business you have with us homeless people? Akama and Nubudin asked cautiously. Roger smiled and said, since you are homeless, then build a new home for yourselves. Akama and Nubudin exchanged glances. Although they thought Roger's words made sense, they wouldn't change their sad mood with just one sentence. Roger continued, of course, if you want to return to your original forms, that's also possible. The two looked at Roger in surprise. What do you mean by that? Literal meaning. Roger said. I have been studying the domain of life and spells to remove fell curses. If you are willing to cooperate, I can research in this area and help you return to your former selves as much as possible. What do we need to give in return? Akama didn't believe that there was a free lunch in the world. Everything came at a price. Roger smiled. Of course, I won't help you for nothing. Let's make a deal. I will help you solve this problem within 10 years, and you need to work for me during this period. If I help you remove the corruption, you will continue to work for me for another 10 years, if I don't solve this problem within 10 years, then I will hand over the ownership of the Black Temple to you. Trading 10 years of loyalty for the restoration of their appearance, and if their appearance isn't restored, there's still the Black Temple as compensation. This is a worthwhile deal. Akama and Nubudin both realized this, so they very decisively agreed to Roger's deal. Chapter 90. With the deal struck, Roger allowed the Shattered to temporarily reside in Tuarim. At the same time, to boost their confidence, he planted a large forest on the newly surfaced land of Tuarim Island. The miraculous life magic indeed broadened the Shattered's horizons, filling them with confidence that Roger could heal their corruption. They settled in Tuarim to build new homes, using the trees to construct wooden houses and bridges. Akama left Nubotan to guard Turem while he led a group to contact the Shattered scattered in various locations, preparing to invite them to live in Turem together. On Splitstone Mountain in northern Achine Down, the Irako stood high, silently watching the sudden appearance of the forest. "It seems our ally understands wondrous magic," the Irako leader suddenly said. "Let's hope he is a trustworthy person, or the Talon King will be angry." Under his leadership, the Irako descended Splitstone Mountain and walked towards Turem along the river. Having lost their wings, the Irako were no longer known for their speed. Claws were suitable for hunting, but not for walking. Without speed, the Irako also lost their advantage in close combat, and could only focus their energy on magic. Irako who could not learn magic had low combat power and could only do manual labor. Of course, such Irako were relatively few. After all, Achine Down had their former god the Raven god Anzu. Under Anzu's teachings, most Irako had learned shadow magic. If it weren't for Sthek's curse affecting their talents, the Irako of Achine Down could definitely organize a terrifying army of Irako mages. This time, the Irako sent an army of 200 mages, which could be said to be very powerful. However, after arriving in Turem, they behaved very humbly. The Irako were well aware of Roger's achievements in Draenor. Whether it was the previous pursuit of Terran Gorfiend or the collapse of Gul'dan's hand, the Irako in the shadows had witnessed it all. In particular, they knew that Roger possessed a powerful artifact that could kill Terran Gorfiend, who was like a god. "Respected guest, I bring greetings from the Talon King." Roger looked at the Irako leader in front of him with great interest. It was the first time he had seen an Irako hero. The fact that they were so cautious even towards allies showed how afraid of death these Irako were. "Please also give my regards to the Talon King. My name is Sesek, and I am the Talon King's magic advisor." Sesek? Roger thought for a moment. This guy seemed to be the first boss in the Irako area of Achine Down. The shadow energy fluctuations on Sesek's body confirmed that his memory was correct. "I promised you before that I would help you reclaim the spires of Iraq. However, there will be great obstacles to this expedition. Nazul has opened a dark portal in the southern spires of Iraq, and demons are constantly entering this world through the dark portal. They want to destroy the entire Draenor, so as soon as they appear, they kill all visible creatures, burn any visible plants, and pollute the entire land with fell energy. I wonder, how determined are you to reclaim your homeland?" Hearing this, Sesek opened his mouth, but dared not give Roger an answer. Roger didn't mind and continued, "If you are very determined, then we will kill all the demons there. It's just that, in that case, the troops you brought are not enough at all. If you only destroy the dark portal, establish an outpost in the spires of Iraq, and then slowly clear the demons, then your troops are enough." Sesek quickly chose the latter. "Although returning to our homeland is the wish of all Irako, we can no longer withstand too many losses, so let's slowly clear the demons. Then you must be prepared for your homeland to be polluted." Roger boarded the demon hunter, and a Draenei craftsman found him. "General Rogers, you must be careful of that Irako." "Oh?" Roger asked in surprise, "Are you talking about Sesek, the magic advisor of the Talon King?" "That's right," the Draenei craftsman said. "The Irako call Sesek the Dark Weaver, but we Draenei call him the Master of Deceit. Everything Sesek does contains conspiracies. He is constantly calculating others, whether they are enemies or allies." Roger's expression was a little strange. The conflict between the Draenei and the Irako was a bit big. He had just reached a cooperation with Sesek, and now someone was trying to discredit him. It seemed that the Irako and the Draenei could not be put together, otherwise, problems would easily arise. He both believed and disbelieved the Draenei's words. The Draenei had been in contact with the Irako for longer and knew them better, and would know many things that Roger didn't know. But he believed that the Draenei had definitely exaggerated their words. No one lived in deceit all day long, and using shadow didn't mean being psychologically dark. Sesek used deceit to protect his clan, and his starting point was good. He was helping Roger, so why would he scheme against Roger? Of course, even if Sesek schemed against Roger, Roger was not afraid. He was using a blatant scheme in his strategy towards the Irako, using their eagerness to return home to get them to help him destroy the dark portal in the spires of Iraq. When the interests of both parties were aligned, there was no need to worry about the Irako playing tricks. If the Irako played tricks, it meant that there was a conflict of interest between the two parties. Resolving the conflict was the top priority. If the conflict could not be resolved, then resolving the person who created the conflict was also possible. Don't worry, I will guard against him. After the Drania craftsman left, Roger couldn't help but shake his head. Although the Drania were very good allies, they still had the darkness in their hearts that belonged to them. Otherwise, they would not have rejected the Shattered, and there would not have been so many Drania who had fallen. Everyone has two sides, and where there is a noble side, there is bound to be a despicable side. After boarding the Demon Hunter, the Araco were attracted to the Apex's cannons on the ship. Most Araco had long lost their memories of the Apex's cannons. They just felt that this style of weapon was very much in line with their aesthetics. Sesek recognized the Apex's cannons at a glance. He looked at the cannons in shock, never expecting that the technology that the Araco had lost for a long time would be mastered by a group of outsiders. Did these outsiders master a lot of Apex's crystals and extract Apex's technology from them? How long have these outsiders been here? If they continue to develop, wouldn't they rule the entire continent? Roger walked behind Sesek. The Apex's civilization is truly a great civilization. I only uncovered one corner of it and obtained such a powerful weapon. Sesek trembled and said submissively, even a great civilization has a day of ending. You can make these technologies shine again, and you are also a great hero. Roger chuckled and shook his head. It is easy to destroy a person, just make him arrogant and complacent. And destroying a civilization is the same. When the ruler thinks that he is high above, then this civilization is not far from destruction. Sesek looked at Roger in surprise, never expecting that he would summarize the reason for the demise of the Apex's civilization in one sentence. No wonder this outsider has powerful strength and can easily form an alliance with the Drania. It turns out that it is all because of his wisdom.